Sword of Coming Chapter 1102. A fast-moving Liuxia boat, the mountains, rivers, and earth are spread out like a magnificent picture scroll. As soon as the ferry left Baiyue, Lu Xianyang shouted for Chen Pingan. Chen Pingan, who was sleeping on the table, stood up, and called out to the god of night tour several times in his heart, but he didn't answer, so he had no choice but to walk out of the room, came to the bow, and called Wei Bo by his name. Wei Bo soon appeared on the boat. In fact, when he heard the name of the god, Wei Bo immediately breathed a sigh of relief in Piyun Mountain. For Chen Ping's revenge that has been brewing for many years, especially the one against Makushuan Fengshen, because Wei Bo is in the Shinto, he is more worried about this than Luopashan, such as the old cook and Jing Dafeng. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is worried. Chen Pingan had already taken off his boots, and sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat, waving a vermilion gourd. He didn't drink, but just listened to the sound of the wine sloshing. Relieved, Wei Bo leaned back against the railing and asked curiously, "Did the Jisa Peak Sword House receive the letter from the Flying Sword of the Dali Punishment Department?" Chen Pingan said, "Got it, I've read it, I'm busy with business, so I don't bother to reply." Wei Bo was furious. "Just because you didn't reply, the entire Dali Criminal Department had to carefully figure out what you, the national teacher, were thinking, and even His Majesty the Emperor had to ask the Ministry of Rights to send a message to Pianshan, so that he had to go to the Yamen of the Ministry of Punishment himself. What kind of thing is this? Isn't the Emperor in a hurry for the eunuchs?" Chen Pingan squeezed out a smiling face, clasped his fists and shook a few times, and apologized. "One family doesn't talk about two families." Wei Bo asked, "How to arrange them?" Chen Pingan obviously had a plan in mind, and said, "For the time being, let's put these 16 people on that jumping fish mountain. Whether they are warriors or monks, they are all on the same mountain. After 1 or 2 years, if we really send another group sword cultivator, it's still the same, there is no need to send it to the sword worship platform. The jumping fish mountain is not a big place, but it's not a big deal to just throw 30 people in. If I remember correctly, there are actually many ready-made buildings in the mountain, large and small houses. There are more than 100 rooms, which is enough. Moreover, it is close to Luoba Mountain, and I may also open up Fuyolu as a personal dojo. In fact, it is easy to choose a person to teach boxing. Jing Dafeng has been teaching boxing in the Cold Palace for many years in Wucai Tianxia. But the choice of the preacher is a little embarrassing. Of course Chen Ping can teach, but it is definitely not suitable. After all, it's not the Great Wall of Sword Qi. On Howren Tianxia's side, whether it's cultivating Taoism or learning boxing, if the starting point is too high, it's not all good for these 16 fledglings. As for the white-haired boy who now serves as the score editor of Luopa Mountain, in fact, she is a scholarly celestial being, not an exaggeration at all. She can also teach. But her status is special, and it is still inappropriate. Wei Bo took out a booklet from his sleeve, which recorded the detailed files of the 16 people. Never thought that Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "I won't watch it." Normally, Wei Bo would complain a few words like throwing away the shopkeeper as an addict, but seeing Chen Pingan's haggard face at this moment, Wei Bo endured it and let it go. Chen Pingan said, "In addition to Jing Dafeng being responsible for teaching boxing, you can also let Xin Yuanji be a deputy. Teaching boxing for others and feeding boxing for others is actually a kind of learning boxing in itself." Wei Bo froze for a moment, nodded and smiled. "Good idea." Wei Bo said, "Both Lu Yong and Jing Qingjia are in the mountains." Chen Ping asked puzzled, "What is Master Lu doing?" Wei Bo said, "Help Zhao Zhu ask you Luopa Mountain for a guest status, the kind that has a seat in the Patriarch Hall of Ji Se Peak." Chen Pingan said helplessly, "This also requires Master Lu to travel across continents and go to Luopa Mountain in person. Is this a special trip to congratulate you and give you gifts?" Wei Bo laughed it off. Chen Pingan said softly, she has an extra surname. Gu Lingyu, Xingqingjia. For the monks of the wild monster race, adding a surname to themselves is no joke. Her Taoist name is Yuanhu, and her nickname is Wuhua Shuli. In the wild world, she is one of the few monks in the upper 5 realms who does not like fighting by nature, and of course she is not really good at fighting. Wei Bo laughed and said, according to her, it is to recognize the ancestors with Mr. Xiaomo. Another thing is to find Gu Kan to return to the clan. Chen Pingan asked a strange question, did she go up the mountain alone? Wei Bo was puzzled, but didn't bother to ask, just one person. However, anyone who is in the Jade Royal realm will almost always have the means in his sleeve. It's just that how many people and how many things can be loaded depends on the skill level. Chen Pingan didn't ask any more questions. Because there is a secret matter that can be big or small. When Chen Pingan was guarding the city alone, there used to be a chariot with a group of wild female cultivators, Ying Ying and Yen Yen, all the way north, just to catch a glimpse of the young hermit from a distance. Among the chariots, apart from the descendants of the great demon official title, there was a genealogy nun who was born in Jinsui City. It seemed that she was the most important direct disciple of the city lord Yuanhu, and she had all the true inheritance. Wei Bo asked, do you want me to chat with Tong Wenchang? Chen Ping smiled and said, no, Tong Shenjun and I have a better relationship than you and him. Wei Bo laughed and said, then blame me for being sentimental. Without waiting for Qin Shanju to explain a few words, the night wandering returned to Piyun Mountain. Chen Pingan returned to the house resentfully, took out 3 gold and fine copper coins from his sleeve, placed them lightly on the table, and lined them up one by one. An inch of time is worth an inch of gold, and an inch of gold cannot buy an inch of time. At the foot of the mountain, this is a word of encouragement to learn. On the mountain, there is no deep meaning. This gold is gold and copper coins. Old Master Yu was indeed vigorous and resolute in his work. After attending the Confucian Temple sealing ceremony in Piyun Mountain, he returned to the Tianwai Xinghe Dojo. He came to Luopa Mountain with 1,000 gold and fine copper coins, and half lent them to Chen Pingan. Among them, the loaned 500 coins did not charge interest, and he could pay them back at any time. In particular, Yu Xian took the initiative to waive the 300 debts that Tianwai had lent to Chen Pingan earlier. Then, from the 1,500 pieces that Jing Juzhong said, the real gap that Chen Pingan needs to improve the rank of Feijin is actually very small, only 200 pieces. And that doesn't include the bag of gold and copper coins that Lu Su gave away. It's just that those 36 gold and fine copper coins just happen to make up a set of 36 heavenly gangs of the Big Dipper Zongxing, which is extremely rare and can be called invaluable. If Qin Ping just refined it into the water of the long river of time, it would be too violent. But it can be refined into a large formation that does not need to invite the gods to come down to the truth. 36 generals are in charge of sitting on the banks of the long river of time. He also earned a considerable amount of gold and copper from Yushiwu, which could have filled the gap, but since the two sides became allies temporarily, Chen Pingan didn't have the nerve to stay, and Yushiwu refused to accept it at first. Said it was useless, Chen Pingan tried to persuade him, and Yushiwu finally took it back. Thinking about it now, it really is that he is not good at learning, and he didn't really understand the essence of Hulong Daoist's business classics. When doing business with people, you can't be too thin-skinned. In fact, in the previous battle with Ma Kushuan, the body of the fake Zhou Mi was made of gold and copper coins, 1,000. 2,000. Where did Ma Kushuan get so many gold and copper coins? Chen Pingan never asked from the beginning to the end of the fight. In fact, after Ma Kushuan was beheaded with a sword, this guy even gave up his soul at the last moment, obviously wanting to keep all these gold, essence and copper coins in that cage. While the sky and the earth were dark and unclear, a bright red color oozes out. Xiao Xing immediately knew how powerful he was, and kept silent like a cicada, not daring to make another mistake. Heaven and man are connected. If Qin Pingan is a well-deserved god here, then his mood ups and downs will tell the world with different celestial phenomena. Chen Ping looked at Gong Sun Lingling. In the future, if she dares to pester you again and delay your progress in creating a world full of gold and color, I will let her learn how to write the word regret. Gong Sun Lingling said, I can work here willingly, but I need a salary that has nothing to do with fairy money. Chen Pingan asked curiously, tell me about it. Gong Sun Lingling said, if you can guarantee that she won't pester me any longer, I hope you can give Xiao Xing an extra in her crotch under the premise of keeping Xiao Xing's appearance and figure unchanged. Xiao Xing smiled flamboyantly, not afraid at all. At that time, I will not wear clothes all day long, and it doesn't matter if I don't touch your body, just walk the bird. Chen Pingan was speechless. Yu Shiwei's scalp was even more numb. Gong Sun Lingling said, then let me change my request. Let me produce more of this thing, and let her have a time every day that she can't help herself. I will kill her. Chen Pingan said helplessly, you all go to see the doctor. Before that, you should be busy with your own business and don't meet again. I will help you set up a layer of restriction, which is thousands of miles away. Yu Shiwu was dumbfounded and terrified. Xiao Xing covered his mouth and smiled coquettishly. Yu Qing, sooner or later you will not be able to bear the loneliness. Take the initiative to have with me. Chen Pingan remembered something and said, Gong Sun Lingling, I just met Xiao Pu and Lu Taoji in the Chongyang Temple in the capital. When the time is right, I can help you restore your identity as Cherry Tsing Yi. Gong Sun Lingling kept silent, clenched her fists and just nodded. Chen Pingan said, Yu Shiwu, let's talk while walking. Yu Shiwu wished he could get away from those two girls and follow Chen Pingan up the Shinto path. On both sides of the mountain road, there was still a scene of dead bodies hanging with horizontal swords. Compared to Xiao Xing and Gong Sun Lingling, Yu Shiwu was the last one to enter Chen Pingan's state of mind dojo. After he became more and more familiar with the foundation of this place, he admired Chen Pingan's construction methods more and more. He was amazed and eye-opening. Especially when Chen Ping handed him the key and key, Yu Shiwu finally understood why Xiao Xing would describe everything in the world so quickly. I thought she was proficient in this way, due to her extraordinary talent. It turned out that Chen Pingan had already laid the foundation. Xiao Xing and Yu Qing, all they needed to do was select the components and assemble them. For example, in a strange land that seems to be the source of all laws, there are countless buildings of various types, dotted all over the world, in an orderly manner. Yu Shiwu and them can drive something at will. They can shrink it as small as a mustard seed, or expand it like a star. It all depends on their own wishes. Just talking about one of the Taoist temples, there are 62 Taoist temples and 81 temples as manuscripts. The key is that each has its own characteristics. For example, the statues of the 24 heavens borrowed from Tifo Temple, the statues of Lingguan in Lingxiao Temple, the murals of the Chaoyuan dynasty in Dechunyang Longevity Palace, the Linggu Temple at the gate of Guanshan Gate on horseback, and the lifelike 500 wooden sculptures in Jingxi Temple in Nanping Mountain. Arhat. In addition, there are Taoist temples and temples that remove all the characteristics of the two base books, similar to the carved copper coins made by the government. The dismantled objects are even more diverse, such as plaques, couplets, statues, murals, algae wells, oil lamps, pillars, mortise and tenon, bricks and stones. They are all classified into categories, assigned high and low levels, and arranged according to heavenly stems and earthly branches. It is not just a simple patchwork, superposition and combination, but an institutional system similar to Confucianism in a broad sense. Just the law is not enough to do it yourself, the inner sage will drive the outer king. A building as a whole can be disassembled into hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of fragmented and small parts, and the three of them can use them directly. That's why Shaoxing was created so quickly. Now the few of them, in terms of increasing the number of things in the world, are of course doing addition, but in terms of difficulty, they are doing subtraction. Such whimsy, such ingenuity. Yu Shiwu was no longer in admiration or awe, but an instinctive fear from the bottom of his heart. In addition, there is still a clear spring on the top of the mountain, the aura is as thick as spring water, and it looks like a secluded pool. Anyone who feels tired can come here to drink water directly, meditate and breathe, rest and rejuvenate, and replenish spiritual energy. According to what Shaoxing said, so much aura of heaven and earth is equivalent to the aura reserve of a cultivator in the Ascension realm. At the top of the mountain, where the green bricks were paved, Chen Pingan walked to the side of the pool and said for no reason, Ma Kuxuan is a smart man, and he is even more awkward. Regarding his natal flying sword, Ma Kuxuan had already learned it himself in the Dadu River. But Zhou Mi, who was invited by Ma Kuxuan to ask God, didn't even know about it. In fact, there are many people who like to be awkward with themselves, with others, and with the world. For example, Lu Xianying never likes to say sorry to others. Another example is that Song Jisin is similar. Many times he wants to ease the relationship with his neighbors, but he is unwilling to speak up. Maybe Ma Kuxuan's awkwardness is that he refuses to talk to anyone well, and refuses to ask for help. Yu Shiwu couldn't guess why Chen Pingan said this. Chen Pingan did not continue to talk about this topic. Yu Shiwu asked, Chen Pingan, do you really need our external forces? Chen Pingan said firmly, of course. Yu Shiwu asked, why? Chen Pingan said, let a person eat braised pork all the time, 3 meals a day. It's okay to not eat it. How does it taste? Does it feel good? Yu Shiwu smiled and said, of course it's uncomfortable. Chen Pingan said, in the same way. No matter how exquisite the land, mountains, rivers, and various buildings built by me, they can surpass you in everything, everyone, and everyone. You only need to look at them for a long time. There will be a feeling of boredom, and even nausea. This kind of intuition does not make sense. So I need a few of you. Yu Shiwu sighed and said, understood. Years ago, I was pursuing the realm of no mistakes. But one day, it was so precious to find some wrongs. Chen Pingan said slowly, someone needs to replace this world and make mistakes all the time. The more mistakes there are, the more real and credible this world will be. Yu Shiwu admired, it's suddenly clear. If he could really get rid of that calamity, Yu Shiwu really wanted to go to Luopa Mountain to seek a place, even as a gatekeeper. Chen Ping said with a smile, it is more difficult to be the gatekeeper of our Luopa Mountain than to have a seat in the Patriarch Hall of Jisa Peak. Yu Shiwu felt helpless. Chen Ping stretched out a palm and said with a smile, those gold and copper coins that are temporarily entrusted to you. Yu Shiwu couldn't stop laughing angrily, obviously it was returned to the original owner, so why did it become a thing for safekeeping? If you cut a path on the road, just say it. If you robbed money, why bother talking about borrowing money? Chen Pingan kept his posture unchanged, nodded and said, grab money. Yu Shiwu took out a money bag from his sleeve, and slapped it heavily on someone's palm. Take them all, more than 230 coins. Chen Pingan thanked him. Yu Shiwu shook his head. Chen Pingan asked, You Daoist Yu, do you want to see the truth that is not the whole picture? Answer after thinking about it. Yu Shiwu said without hesitation, look. Why don't you look? I saw a Dao tree standing in the center of the world, with countless almost smallest ones hanging there. Yu Shiwu was stunned and speechless, only dumbfounded. He was really shocked by the scene in front of him. It feels magnificent and amazing, but also creepy and shuddering. Whether this Chen Pingon is ambitious or ambitious, in short, he clearly wants to rebuild the world and completely confuse the boundaries between true and false, false and real. What you see when you look at the flowers on horseback is scribbled after all, and you often know what it is and don't know why. Many truths in the world that have revealed the answers to the mysteries, whether they are still deceptions or are already facts, will always make people feel just so. But when Chen Pingon only opened the prelude to the whole picture of the truth, Yu Shiwu was already unstable. Chen Pingon, who is still dressed as a Taoist priest at the moment, laughed at himself. There is an impure way to go if you are not pure. A mustard seed returned to Lixiazwa's real body, and Chen Pingon reached out to put his hand between his eyebrows. After a while, he leaned on the back of his chair and let out a breath of foul air. Chen Ping took out a yellowed book from his sleeve, put it gently on the table, and opened a page casually, which recorded the technique that the higher the monk's vision, the more he valued it. The heaven and the earth are connected, the mountains and walls are connected, soft as an apricot flower, thin as a paper page. I point a sword, open the door quickly, and obey the law of Mr. Sanshan Joho. Looking down at the words, after a while, Chen Pingon was a little dazed, so he had to look away and close his eyes to rest. In this old book, the first preface and the last few pages were torn out. In addition, several unconnected pages were also torn out in the middle, totaling 5 sheets. However, by chance, Chen Pingon completed these 5 pages. This book is a ghost painting talisman given to Chen Pingon by Li Huai at the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. It was given to Li Huai by the old man Yang from the pharmacy, and Li Huai then gave it to Chen Pingon, which is tantamount to sending charcoal in a timely manner. In the early years, the Empress Dowager Dolly received 5 offerings to the court from Lu's family on Fulu Street, one of which recorded the technique of penetrating walls and entering rooms. She is blind and completely ignorant, and only regards it as a wall-penetrating technique. Finally, Chen Pingon, who was brought into the palace with Shemwa, got these 5 pages. Then Li Huai sent books. Going around and going around is truly a coincidence that is worthy of the name. Li Huai said that his brain hurts when he read it, and he is not polite. Regarding reading, Li Huai is really like Mao Sai's comment, we are not able to do it, and he is better than scholarly and diligently. Chen Pingon got this rare and unusual ancient Taoist book. Although it was not long, it helped a lot on the road of cultivation. It can be seen that there is a lot of knowledge, and Chen Pingon can even use the 4 words, I point to a sword, to combine this complete formula with swordsmanship Pei Min, the bird's-eye view of Feng Lufang, who is Pei Min's unnamed disciple, and the lotus root. Gu Kan said in a deep voice, being able to deal with the nascent soul realm is enough to shock the world. If you can erase the key memories of a nascent soul realm at will and prescribe the right medicine, wouldn't you have a fundamental method to deal with the inner demons? Gu Kan said, you. Chen Pingon deliberately ignored the word men, remained silent for a moment, then shook his head and said, don't forget, the word I used at the beginning was cut off. Reaching out to draw a mark on the table with his nails, Chen Pingon asked, what do you use to fill this seemingly small but actually huge gap? It's like cutting a piece of flesh from a person, no matter how big or small it is. It's not such a simple matter of healing from a wound or scarring, or raw flesh from white bones. Chen Pingon said slowly, ordinary Qi trainers, sect genealogy cultivators, and even many earth immortals may not know the truth, but you have no reason not to know. Gu Kan nodded and said, everything we see, hear, eat, smell, sorrow, joy, think is actually recorded in the soul one by one. Without knowing it, it is difficult to realize it. Chen Pingon said, if you are a lady, the truth is preserved by witnessing. This sentence is generally used to describe a genius. In fact, it can be regarded as a side note of memory, don't understand it. Speaking of talents, for example, the grandson of Zuandugwan in Chizhou, Qingming Tianxia. Gu Kan and Chen Pingan have a tacit understanding. This kind of misinterpretation, isn't it a misinterpretation? Are you familiar with Lu Chen, or am I more familiar? Why are you holding grudges against me? Go hold grudges against that big-mouthed Lu Xianyang. What do I hold grudges against a big mouth? I only care about petty minds like you. Chen Pingan continued, secondly, whether it is Pu Lu or Shao Xing, Chen Ping is not deep in their memory, and their involvement is not extensive. It is relatively simple to cut. This is why I sent them to one of the reasons for your hand is not just to add to the icing on the cake. Once they stay with me for a long time, or stay in the Luola mountain to cultivate, they will almost completely lose the possibility of entering the Jade realm. Just tamper with memory, delete subtracting this thing and adding something else. In the end, it is not too difficult to achieve the point of confusing the real with the fake. Nascent soul realm cultivators' mental disturbance is tantamount to idiot's dream. We can only move with the times, for some people, occasionally. Doing so is tantamount to voluntarily assuming a share of cause and effect. Those who practice the Tao, who doesn't pursue a life without branches or vines. What I wanted to do, I couldn't do. Powerless. If you can do it, you don't want to do it. Powerful and unintentional. There is one more thing that Chen Pingan did not tell Gu Kan. Are there two identical snowflakes between heaven and earth? Jing Juzhong said he had seen it. Xiao Pu shook his head. I have gone through this calamity myself, so I don't have the spirit now, so I just hide here. The middle-aged Taoist priests are already tall and powerful, so they feel extremely oppressive, especially the women of medium stature. When they look at each other, they look like mountains pressing down on them. So that treasure tree was extremely nervous. When the other party sent the Taoist book, regardless of whether she understood it or not, the middle-aged Taoist just explained it word by word, and her mind went blank. Zhong Shan, who was as tall and thin as a bamboo pole, went to a back alley in Changning County, and ran all the way back to Chongyang Temple. When he saw the old Taoist priest, the young man had a regretful expression on his face. When we went to find the person who rented the house to them, he also said that he was missing, only that the grandpa and grandson were in the house and left some scraps of money. The old Taoist stroked his beard with a smile and said, "If you don't have a fate, you can't get it if you ask for it. It's the same between you and that friend Bai Yun. Don't be sad. Whether you can meet tomorrow or not, you will know tomorrow." Zhong Shan hummed. Song Juchuan, a little Taoist boy, asked suddenly, "Master Jing, have you ever heard of the term crane's breath?" The old man snorted and said, "How do you know this kind of Taoist terms?" Song Juchuan was stunned. "Really?" Ching Fengxian said with a smile, "Of course there is, but the saying on this mountain is not common, it is relatively uncommon. As a teacher, you can know the phrase crane's breath, and ordinary Taoists may not have heard of it." Song Juchuan was slandering endlessly, "That guy has a lot of eyes." After thinking about it, the old Taoist decided to go to the haunted house in Zhugan Hutong, Yongzhou County. He dipped in the talisman water and performed the eye purification technique. He saw two branches of wormwood hanging at the door, but they were not close to the door of the house. Without the shame, the old Taoist knocked on the head of the shop lightly, and soon a woman opened the door. She looked around and asked a strange question, "Master Wu?" The old Taoist was puzzled, and said, "It's Miss Shui, right? Poor Taoist's surname is Qing, and Taoist's name is Huilu. He practiced in Chongyang Temple. When he came here, he was reminded by Taoist Wu. He came here to buy it with Miss Shui. The wormwood hanging at the door." Shui Rui was very puzzled, looked and looked, but couldn't see anything. "Where is the wormwood?" There was indeed an oily young Taoist priest who had nothing to do with her before, and she said something like giving Qing a pair of love. Ordinary households hang calamus and wormwood to ward off evil spirits and avoid ghosts. That's all. Sheikh Shui Rui hangs wormwood in this haunted house as a ghost. Thanks to that liar Taoist figured it out. Chui Dongshan then rubbed his hands and said, there are a few things. As a junior brother, you have to report it to senior sister Pei. First of all, I have seen Yu Lu and you are welcome. Yu Lu is an open-minded person. He directly misunderstood that he was in the old Lu family. On the other side of the dynasty's territory, I met his ancestors' white clothes, and the latter gave him a box of elixir, which was very precious. It was the fourth party known as 100 Days of Climbing Immortals, which was written by Gu Xianjun, and this Gu Xianjun is the so-and-so that senior sister Pei wrote on the talisman just now. Bai Chang's only disciple is that Su Xian who begs and entangles He Xiaoliang, and soon he will be one of Yu Lu's helpers in establishing the country. Yu Lu is a villain and a villain. He asked me if I could do it. I am a big man, encountering such a problem, can you say no? In addition, the founder of Xiang Mansion of Huang Tinghua, Wu Yi with the Taoist name Dongling, the eldest daughter of the old Zhao Qing Longzhou, has already started to make a new start on the bank of the Lin River, and start the mountain again. Li Pai has become the patriarch. If there is no accident, the name of the sect should be Chunyangfu. She probably hopes to change the word in the future and become Chunyangzong. The idea is good, so Wu Yi also has something, that is, not much. Not long ago, the little brother and Chao Qinglang brought those Tongis Hao people who were willing to leave the blessed land of lotus roots and return to their hometowns to come here through a well connected to the mirage city of the Daquan dynasty. Chao Qinglang found the Emperor's Majesty, that is, the Yao sister you are familiar with, chatting very well. The atmosphere is harmonious. Half of the Qi refiners, and their descendants of the immortal family, are willing to have a relationship with the Yao family in Daquan, and they lined up all night to chat with Yao Jin after signing all kinds of secret treaties, and having a backer, they hurried back to restore their respective countries, restore the gods, grab the territory, etc. As a reward, the Daquan dynasty will give us Qingping Jianzong a boat named Lei for free. Cars transcontinental ferry. Hearing this, Pei Qian, who was just drinking silently, finally said, why is it belong to your Qingping sword sect? It must be discussed in Luobashan Patriarch Hall before it counts. Chui Dongshan sighed, these words are like flying swords, poking countless holes in the heart of my little brother. Pei Qian raised the jug in his hand, stop talking about it, let's get on with the business. Chui Dongshan lamented, being sad first, then chilling, it will be double the damage. Pei Qian rolled his eyes. Chui Dongshan clasped the back of his head with both hands, shook his legs, and said leisurely, over there in our blessed land, there is a female cultivator Sun Wanyan with quite good qualifications, Luo Fume, a direct disciple of Hugua Peixiang, and a swordsman who has just entered the golden body Chao and I. He is determined to learn some boxing skills with Yuan Huang who went to Luopa Mountain to find my husband, Wu Jiang, a young hero who is unreliable and reliable, and He Qizhou, a female martial artist from Jiangzhou of Songlai Kingdom. After completing the task of protecting the road, I feel that the opportunity is rare, and I am willing to go out for a long time. I have gained a lot of experience here in Tongisao. I guess they are all on the way to Yunyan country together. You don't know, where is Mr. Damuguan, the miraculous posture of preaching? I don't know how many men admire it, and women love it. Sir, never make mistakes, and when it comes to love between men and women, he is even more clean and self-sufficient, can't pick out the slightest flaw, but I don't know how many mistakes women's minds. Those who are the least self-defeating are the most deceitful, and there is no way. Pei Qian grinned, the word sounded good. The woman she once called Sister Yao, the current Empress Yao Jinji, isn't she one of them? Chui Dongshan said with a smile, as for our chief Shou, who is busy and hard-working, he is flustered now. This is the first time he has met Mr. Xiaomo, who may not win the battle for the Dao, and he is holding back his energy and trying to prove himself. He brought 4 sword cultivators who came into being in the blessed land of lotus roots, and came to Tongya Island earlier than me and Chao Qinglang. Chief Zhou also took away a woman whose real name was Xiao Xing from the blessed land. Dead man, I took a trip to Tianmu Academy. Shi and Wen Yuan Shanzhang of Tianmu Academy cooperated seamlessly, bluffing many bystanders who were hiding behind the scenes. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "That's all for the time being. After the report is over, I beg Senior Sister Pei to give you instructions." Pei Qian just said, "In fact, I really want to travel Haoran with Master, but I can't say it." Cui Dongshan laughed and said, "It turns out I was worried about this matter." Pei Qian squinted and said, "Is it funny?" Cui Dongshan immediately put his fingers together and wiped his mouth, shaking his head vigorously like a rattle. Pei Qian said, "Master asked me to tell you a word. He already has a clue for those spoilers from the wilderness, and there is an extra portrait in his heart. It is the wilderness sword cultivator with the alias Cardamom. Master let you relax. He has his own means, and if he has the opportunity to follow the clues, he might be able to find out that Golden Core Realm Talisman cultivator as well." Cui Dongshan imitated the white-haired boy, and began to raise his arms and shouted, "Mr. is wise, Mr. is martial, and Mr. is even more invincible than true invincible." Pei Qian said, "Ma Kushuan is dead. The master was seriously injured. The long sword Yao was broken in 2, and the natal magic robe that carried the Yao's real name was also torn. As a result, the master took a trip to Yuzhou. For some reason, the Chongyang temple in the capital of Xianguo was injured again. Master told me not to worry, but I wanted to, but I couldn't help it." Cui Dongshan nodded. Pei Qian said, "Master's retreat this time, in addition to entering the immortal realm, he also returned to the end realm. Cui Dongshan hesitated for a moment, and asked curiously, "This is a good thing, why do you still look frowning?" Pei Qian kept silent and didn't drink. Cui Dongshan said, "Outside the sky, I will help Li Sheng and cooperate with those who are too tall to prevent the 2 worlds from colliding. The master is responsible for presiding over the big formation, and he is very capable of strengthening the physique of a martial artist. It is actually a matter of course for things to come from prosperity to return to the truth." Pei Qian said sullenly, "Master did not rank among Guasian as the strongest." Cui Dongshan grinned and said, "This kind of thing can't be forced. It should be, and it should be. What's more, now that the 2 worlds of Haoran and Wilderness are connected, and it happened to be a rare rain period before, what? Weird people and things will come up, sir. It's a pity that you didn't get the word strongest, but it's not enough to make you so depressed, big sister, right?" Pei Qian stared into the distance in a daze, not knowing whether he saw the day before yesterday, or wanted to see the day after tomorrow. Cui Dongshan shook his head and shoulders, shook his sleeves, and said, "Master, don't worry, I will find that who stole your master sooner or later, when the time comes." Cui Dongshan, who woke up suddenly, seemed to be strangled by someone, unable to speak a word. Slowly turning his head, Cui Dongshan asked tentatively, "Master, could it be, could it be?" Pei Qian nodded and said, "Blame me." Even Cui Dongshan was scratching his head, not knowing how to speak. If it were someone else who said such things to Cui Dongshan face to face, Cui Dongshan would have a big mouth when he jumped up. "Are you sure you stole my husband's martial arts? I don't know the heights of the sky and the depths of the earth. How many times have I won the strongest, and how many gifts of martial arts have been obtained?" The answer turned out to be Pei Qian. So Cui Dongshan was a little confused. Pei Qian said softly, "At first I thought it would be a small surprise for Master, but now I'm fine. I'm really a loser, right?" Even though Cui Dongshan had hundreds of reasons in his mind, he didn't think he could persuade Pei Qian not to do so. No use at all. So Cui Dongshan had no choice but to use an unavoidable method. He stretched out his palm to cover his mouth, called his husband by his name, and whispered, "Chen Ping, Chen Ping." Pei Qian was furious, turned his head and stared and said, "Big white goose, are you trying to die?" In an instant, Chen Pingan seemed to know the matter through Cui Dongshan's complaint, and without hesitation, he immediately used some kind of supernatural power to temporarily release the white-clothed god, and spoke with his disciples and students with a heartfelt voice, and his tone was hard to hide. His face was full of smiles. "It's outrageous not to say it earlier. He'll leave this chestnut first. Don't say much, let's teach Master a lesson for a proud student who has committed a crime." Cui Dongshan was extremely wronged, and wailed, "Sir, you are happy, and elder sister is relieved. Is it just me who is not a human? Ah." The series after that were actually prepared by Cui Dongshan in advance, and he deliberately complained to his husband. But why didn't the big white goose expect that the big sister didn't do anything? For the first time, Cui Dongshan, who was a little embarrassed, scratched his face, and made a mistake. Pei Qian raised his head and took a sip of wine, raised the back of his hand to wipe the corners of his mouth. His demeanor changed completely, his expression was no longer gloomy, and he said with raised eyebrows, "Thank you, little brother." Taking advantage of her good mood, Cui Dongshan said with a smile, "In addition to Yu Xiaofu and Lu Suiyu, Lu Yuzhou is also in the capital." Pei Qian twitched the corner of his mouth. "On my master's side, I can pretend not to hear certain hidden meanings. As for your big white goose, as far as I'm hiding, it's because Lu Yuzhou likes me, so it's a big deal. What he likes him has nothing to do with me, Pei Qian. If you are a big girl, you must get married. So what if I become an old girl? In this world, there is already a master, and she has rivers and lakes to leave." Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue and said, "If Lu Yuzhou knows what elder sister wants, I don't know whether Lu Yuzhou should be thankful that he doesn't need to be wrapped in a sack, or he will be so sad that his heart will be twisted into a ball." Pei Qian showed her signature smile. Cui Dongshan immediately changed his words, jumped up, patted his stomach, laughed and said, "The jejunum is like thunder, and I invite you to eat snails, and the hot pot is also available. Let's go for supper." Pei Qian got up and said, "Go to the Tongyin ferry." Cui Dongshan Xiaoji pecked at the rice, "Master, you don't know, and now the sword fairy Mida is showing off, and the limelight is like a moment. Let's ride the wind together to Yulindu." Yunnan country, located in the middle of Tongya continent, is a small country with a basin situation and a place in the palm of your hand. Although it is not a vassal of any dynasty, the only ones that can be sold are actually the name of the capital of vinegar, barley wine and ink making. But now it is the entire Tongyishao, the most prestigious country. The Yunyan Qin family temporarily built a Yulindu to facilitate the exchange of immortal masters on the mountain. When the Fengyuan ferry docked here before, Miyu, who stayed at home, just happened to stand by the railing of the boat, and there were whispers one after another, obsessive and blurred eyes, excited expressions, and even there was the woman's scream. They worked tirelessly and waited for the rabbit, just to see Shangmi Jianxian from afar. This annoyed Miyu so much. "Those rich women from various countries are fine, you are all cultivators, shouldn't you be so selfish? Nowadays, there are not a few women fighting for me, yes, injustice, and their number tends to increase, and they are almost ready to form cliques in the capital of Yunyan Kingdom." As the chief enshrined of Qingping sword sect, Mi Yu and Mi Daijiangxian didn't have a place in the temporarily established ancestral hall, and the place was given to a young man named Xiao Qinglang in Jingxingfeng. After much deliberation, they only found one reason. Probably this is the unique state of mind of a Sandan sword fairy. Thinking of this, they admired the virtuous Mi Lang even more. They really couldn't imagine what kind of function Mi Jianxian was on the top of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, alone all year round, lying drunk and asleep under the clouds and clouds. The Qingping Sword Sect, which is the sect under the Luopa Mountain and the dragon crossing the river, has Mi Jianxian sitting in it. Wouldn't it be a waste of everything if it didn't open the mirror? It's hard for us Miro. It's no wonder that Mi Jianxian, who is facing the wind in Yushu, can't hide his unruly and desolate body every time he sees him. As for me, yes, real state of mind, it couldn't be simpler. I'm just a fool. I don't deserve it. Look, Mi Jianxian is in a very good mood today, and he is willing to drink with others, and have a good drink. My family, Mi Lang, walks with one hand behind his back and one hand and twirling the jug. He's really unrestrained and unrestrained. Who is it that can drink at the same table as Mi Jianxian? It doesn't matter what his status is, as long as he is not a woman. Before that, God of Wealth Liu of Iazhao participated in the Qingping Sword Sect ceremony, and sent out a Tongyin ferry directly with a big hand. Although Tongyin is not a cross-continental ferry, its cargo capacity is still better than that of the overturned Ink Dragon boat on Luopa Mountain in Shangzhou. Now, this Tongyin ship has replaced the Fengyuan ferry and docked at Yulindu, and it is almost becoming a sword ferry's private residence that belongs exclusively to Miyu. Tonight, on the second deck of the ferry, Miyu set up a table with 2 jugs of wine. Feng Shuetao, who was drinking at the same table, cooked himself and cooked a few cold dishes to go with the wine. Feng Shuetao, who was born as a field cultivator, is a little bit good. He can also be particular about it, and he can even make ends meet. He knows all kinds of crafts. Feng Shuetao joked, "It can be seen that Mi Jianxian is very popular here." Mi Yu smiled wryly, and laughed at himself. If fellow Daoist Qingmi reveals his identity, he will only be more popular than a piece of trash like me. Feng Shuetao said helplessly, "Forget it, now my reputation can be regarded as being in the rotten street of Tonggishao. If I had known this, I would not have agreed to Jiang Daoyu as an enshrinement to Yu Guizhong, who is a son of labor. This Aazhao Ascension Realm field cultivator, Taoist named Qingmi, is wearing a python suit, a white jade belt, and an iron mace pinned to his waist. I followed Jiang Shangzhen to the famous Luopa mountain before. Only a few steps away from Feng Shuetao, there was a young man with a yellow hat and green shoes, and a girl with a ermine hat with rosy cheeks. Afterwards, Feng Shuetao, who was himself an Ascension Realm, was terribly frightened. After returning to Tonggishao, he followed Jiang Shangzhen to the Yugui Zone Patriarch Hall. The procedure was extremely simple, and he became a registered enshrinement. However, Feng Shuetao found that everyone looked at him with strange eyes. Feng Shuetao didn't know the reason until he went out for a walk alone in the blessed land of Cloud Caves, and now on Izhou Mountain, everyone is talking about himself. The outside world said that it was because of Jiang Thief's kind invitation that Feng Shuetao was willing to lower his status and serve as an enshrinement of Yugui Zone. After all, his cultivation base was even higher than that of the suzerain Wei Ying. Regarding this matter, it was rumored that Jiang Shangzhen was so shameless that he knelt and kowtowed with Feng Shuetao. His head was bloody, almost knocked his head off. And one of the conditions Feng Shuetao put forward at that time was that he was very wild and very manly. In the blessed land of Yunku, there must be a woman serving him every day to warm Feng Shueto's bed. It's also reasonable, since Feng Shuetao is not good at being able to mix with Jiang Shangzhen, a prodigal and prostitute who has a mother-in-law in every village. In his hometown of Iazhao, Feng Shuetao has never been so miserable after being a Shanzhua Yeshio for so long. Even if he doesn't take his reputation seriously, he can't be shameless. Of course, Miyu heard about these gossips, and he couldn't be happier, but the person involved was sitting opposite to drink, and he still had to be polite, so he borrowed a truth from the group of young people in the summer palace. Look at the 2 words of freedom on the paper. How to write this word, you will know whether you are free or not. Feng Shuatao nodded, picked up the wine bowl. That's a good sentence, it's worth taking one. Miyu bumped the bowls against them, finished their drinks, and said, for that matter, fellow Daoist Lao Qingmi made a few more trips. For the excavation of Dadu, from the alliance in the early stage to the day when the second dragon raised its head in February, and the establishment of the Patriarch Hall, the early progress can be said to be smooth, and it has made a good start. Unexpectedly, a shit-stirring stick that smashed talismans randomly popped out, causing people's hearts to be distracted. No matter begging for money, or getting enough to eat, you can't lose your life. For this reason, Miyu, the two hometown veterans Jinxiu, Xingyun and Lu Shuwei, Wang Ting of Taiping Mountain, the immortal named Longmen of Taishu Mountain in Zhongtu, and even Qingtong of Xinyala were secretly mobilized. In the end, Huang Ting was the only one who bumped into that guy by luck. Even so, Huang Ting still couldn't kill him on the spot. The most hateful and terrifying thing is the good fortune of the other party. Two figures floated down beside the table, and Miyu quickly got up to meet them. Pei Qian clasped his fists and said with a smile, Chief Mi, Senior Qingmi. Feng Shuatao nodded with a smile, and returned the courtesy. I have seen Master Pei, Master Chui. Pei Qian took out a cotton cloth package from the things close at hand, handed it to Miyu, and explained, it was the millet grains that I asked me to hand over to you. It contains dried fish, melon seeds, and preserved fruits. Miyu was in a good mood, and the haze in his heart was swept away. If Sect Master Chui was not present, Sword Immortal Mi really wanted to step down as the chief enshrinement of Qingping Sword Sect tonight, cut first and play later, and could rush to Luopa Mountain tomorrow. Scold me for being a pig. Just scold, and promise not to answer back. Anyway, when will I, Miyu, be able to shoulder the burden? Chui Dongshan stretched out a palm with a smile, and patted Mi Daijian on the shoulder. Mi Daijian is overqualified, and the burden on his shoulders is still light. Miyu didn't know how to retaliate. Chui Dongshan said with a playful smile, fortunately, Mi Daijianxian is one of his own, so he is not willing to scold me. Otherwise, he would put himself in my position and scold me instead. He would definitely say something like, young man is so handsome, but unfortunately he is not dumb. If this sword fairy doesn't knock you out of with one sword, you're not full. After all, Miyu was Miyu, holding that package, he was still in a good mood. Except for Mr. Yingguan, if someone can disgust me Miyu with words, it means that I have not cultivated enough. Chui Dongshan waved his palm towards Miyu, and said with a smile, Chairman Mi, I'll give you a holiday. It will be over for a month. You are allowed to go back to the Shangzong and find Mi Li. Miyu was overjoyed, really. Chui Dongshan asked back, if you don't take it seriously, then take it as a fake. Miyu smiled and said, it must be taken seriously. Chui Dongshan smiled and said, I'm still Jiang Shangzhen, does it rhyme? Pei Qian reminded, it's almost ready. Chui Dongshan clasped his fingers together and muttered something. After a while, two chairs walked and stand still beside the table. Pei Qian stretched out his hand to rest his forehead, but he couldn't see it. The younger generation of Lizhu Dongtian, who was the first to put forward the idea, was gradually recognized by Haoran Tianxia as the generation of opening the door. As the great disciple of the young Hamid official, Pei Qian is of course one of the very young Master Jijie who was able to become famous in Jinjiazu early on, and is at the forefront. As soon as Pei Qian took his seat, he stood up again, I'm going to visit the blessed land of lotus roots. Chui Dongshan blinked. About to break through. Pei Qian nodded. Breakthrough. In the Lost Mountains, the boy in green and the girl in black are not sleepy. They sit on the stone table over the bamboo building and eat melon seeds. The two parties bump melon seeds together, like a wine bowl, and then eat melon seeds. In the house where the door was never locked, the old cook was lying on the wicker chair and had a dream. He saw a phoenix hairpin resting on it, or maybe a butterfly stuck to it. At the foot of the mountain, Jing Dafeng spent a long night alone and could not sleep, scratching his ears and cheeks, muttering that he couldn't do it. How consummate he was playing hard to get. Could it be that the tricks written in the book were all deceptive? The Taoist priest next door is reading at night in the study. It is a very serious Taoist book, and it is also a book that very few Xianwei can understand. The Taoist priest occasionally dipped his fingers in his saliva and gently turned the pages of the book. The Taoist and the words in the book hit it off. On a Liuxia boat, Chen Pingan was lying on the bed, sleeping deeply, snoring like thunder. Even his sleeping position was so regular, with his hands folded on his stomach, his lips pursed subconsciously, and his brows slightly frowned. Ning Yao was sitting by the bed, her face was blushing slightly, her eyelashes moved slightly, she murmured something, stretched out her fingers, she moved gently, and stretched his brows for him. Sort of Coming Chapter 1103. It was rare for Chen Pingan to be so free both physically and mentally. He woke up naturally after sleeping, and slept soundly and full. It's only dark and bright for one night, and I don't know how many flowers bloom and fall in the world. When he woke up, he noticed someone's face was pressed against the door in the corridor outside the house, and Gukin was standing against the wall, which made Chen Pingan laugh dumbly. You two are protecting the formation, and I'm not retreating. Chen Pingan suddenly opened the door, Lu Xianyang fell into the room, Gukin looked weird, Chen Pingan smiled and said, how can there be so many assassinations, when I am a vegetarian at the end of the world? Gu Kan's expression was even weirder. Lu Xianyang stood up and patted his sleeves. Be careful sailing for 10,000 years, Chen Pingan, you are not experienced enough to walk in the rivers and lakes, let's go. Gu Kan finally couldn't help but said something fair. After you fell asleep, Ning Yao came to Luxiazu and appeared suddenly. We didn't notice the slightest movement, but she took the initiative to say hello to us. Only then did we know she had arrived, but when she left, we don't know. Lu Xianyang walked quickly towards the outside of the house, but Chen Pingan stretched out his hand to hold his shoulder, and came to the corridor like flying through the clouds. Gu Kan also wanted to trick Lu Xianyang and slip away, but was also grabbed by Chen Pingan's shoulders. Why are you running one by one? Since you are straightforward and have no guilt, are you afraid of being misunderstood by me? Both of them were hugged by Chen Pingan, walked together in the corridor, and said with a smile, you are really a good brother Ibo Yuntian, but I am so touched. Gu Kan said, I have not been here for a long time. Lu Jianxian probably listened to the wall for a whole night. Lu Xianyang yelled, let me put you asshole, I'm here on the front foot and you're on the back foot. If I don't come, you dare to come. I'm coming, are you willing to come? Gu Kan laughed and said, it makes sense, what you said is right. Go to the corridor and come to the bow. Gu Lingying stood timidly on the deck, with the wind blowing, his clothes fluttering to one side, his figure was graceful and curvy. Gu Kan frowned and asked, if you don't steer the Liuxia boat, come here to drink the northwest wind. Gu Lingjin was so wrong that he hurriedly said to them in his heartfelt voice, Ning Yao found me last night. She asked me some secrets about the cultivators of the wild and heavenly stems. In the end, she asked me to send 2 sentences to Qin Yingguan. The first sentence was according to the established rules. For the route, go to Fuyazhu to have a look. The second sentence, Ning Yao, is just 4 words, ghosts have been killed. Since Chen Pingan was mentally ill before, he did not revisit the attack on Chongyang Temple with the 2 of them, so he was a little at a loss when he heard the 4 words that Gu Lingjin passed on his behalf. Chen Pingan had no choice but to give them a rough explanation of the reason. In the Chongyang Temple, there was a candidate ghost of the 14th realm who had completed the ascension state. External skills, the shortcut to break through the realm with the help of yin and virtue, and the body and robes of a ghost in cherry green clothes in Chongyang Temple do the opposite, as a fairy across the dark, set up a kind of great wish, announce the world of Yin and Hell, to avenge all the ghosts who died in the Great Wall of Sword Chi and the wilderness of Haran Tianxia. It will kill Chen Pingan, but I didn't dodge it. But if I carried it, it fell into the sky and leaked its tracks. Go to the underworld. As for how Ning Yao got to the underworld, and how he killed the ghosts, I don't know. Lu Xianyang stretched out his hand and patted Chen Pingan's stomach. It's strange, I remember that you just eat your small intestines and stomach, and you rarely eat bad stomachs. Why do you feel uncomfortable when you leave your hometown? You can't eat brown rice, you only eat fine grains gone. Gu Lingyu once again looked at this sect master Lu with admiration, and dared to blame Chen Pingan for eating soft food in person. Gu Kan asked in a deep voice, in the realm of the underworld, behead a 14th level candidate ghost? How did Ning Yao do it? Lu Xianyang laughed and said, this question is very disrespectful. Apart from entering the 14th realm as a pure swordsman, can you find a second reason? Gu Kan just looked straight at Chen Pingan. Guessing is guessing, but Chen Pingan has to give the answer to the truth. Chen Pingan nodded. Gu Kan sighed, no matter who it is, it seems that there are no geniuses in the world if they compete with Ning Yao for talent. After Gu Lingyu learned the truth, he was terrified. It's not forgery, it's just because of her face that can be transformed into thousands of illusions. The face at this moment is Ning Yao in her heart. She tried her best to stabilize her Dao heart, stretched out her hand and wiped her face vigorously. Only then did she regain the appearance of Zi Wuming. Gu Lingying was a guest at Haoran this time, so she wasn't afraid of the hidden official Chen Pingan because of Gu Kan's presence, not to mention that she had never participated in the attack on the Great Wall of Sword Chi, and hadn't even set foot in Haoran's world. Chen Pingan couldn't just because she was a wild Yaozu. Let's kill her with one sword. But that Ning Yao, the 14th level sword cultivator, the #1 person in the colorful world, beheading a savage-rooted jade-level monk, isn't it the same as playing? Lu Xianyang patted Chen Pingan's head, and uttered a series of tut-tuts. There is no overnight revenge, my sister-in-law has already avenged you. Gu Kan didn't want an outsider to know more about the inside story, so she asked her to return to the center of the ferry and continue to steer the boat. Gu Lingying wished this was the case, so as not to be shocked by surprise and hinder her Taoism. Chen Ping smiled and said, I returned to the Guasian floor for the second time, and I didn't get the gift of martial arts that I expected. Lu Xianyang asked doubtfully, I lost something that should have been easily available, and I feel extremely disappointed. I have to force a smile on my brother's side. No need, just cry and see, let the brothers have fun. Gu Kan asked, it shouldn't be like this. You are the most confident to fight for the strongest in this final level of aura. Only in this level, Chao Ci has no advantage. Of course Chao Ci's martial arts aptitude is better than Chen Pingan's, but he is very aggressive and pays attention to a lot. Because Chao Ci's aptitude is too good, it is easy to understate and miss it. As it turns out, it does. Chen Ping smiled from ear to ear, and said slowly, so when I retreated and then came out, I was also very strange. I mistakenly thought that it was due to the weather. Strange people and strange things appeared frequently, and some people got some great opportunities. I took a trip to the long river of time and the like, and saw thousands of years of time and the sights of thousands of mountains before I was able to work on this level and become better than me, so I didn't think much about it. I was from Chui Dongshan, knew the answer, it turned out to be Pei Qian. Lu Xianyang slapped Chen Pingan on the head, it's a shame to show off. Chen Pingan turned his head and dodged it, laughing loudly. It didn't take long to reach the end just because of Pei Qian, and because she was his first disciple, Chen Pingan was once again in the dark. It is not difficult to understand the reasons based on the results. Pei Qian's aura is so strong, how strong is the foundation, and how spectacular the weather is. During the years when Chen Pingan was a hermit official, Pei Qian first went to Luzhou in Beiju with Li Huai, and then traveled alone to Aiazhou, Zhong to Shenzhou, Jinjiasu. Pei Qian has been to Haoranzhou even more than Chen Pingan, and she has been there almost everywhere, and Pei Qian's memory is far better than Chen Pingan's good memory. Chen Ping himself had noticed it a long time ago, and later Lu Qin also reminded him of this in Hehuan Mountain. This is also an important reason why Chen Pingan has been hesitating whether to take Pei Qian to travel Haoran together. Going out alone, her state is high enough, she can walk more casually, and she will be very attentive and serious when she is with Chen Pingan. Don't forget, she can also see people's hearts. As long as Pei Qian wants to see it, unless he is a monk on the top of the mountain, he will be able to see the scene of other people's hearts and minds. Therefore, the Zuanziaxuan where the first level of Wufu Qixing is located is simply tailor-made for Pei Qian. She has a broad vision and a deep memory. As a master, Chen Pingan certainly hoped that she would see more of the great mountains and rivers and people's hearts and all things, so as to lay a solid foundation for Qixing, and strive to break through in the future, be better than herself, and be better than Blue. However, she was also worried that Pei Qian would be concentrating. If she watched too much for a long time, she would consume too much energy. The words, the most powerful at the first level, are actually not that valuable. What is it? Is this a typical old father's mentality? No wonder the old cook, Xing Dafeng, and Wei both chatted in private, saying that their mountain master was on Pei Qianwan's side, and they were so spoiled by them. Like a loving daughter, pity a certain boy in Tsing Yi, like a rebellious son who yawns and scolds. Chen Pingan said, Pu Lu and the others will stay by your side, and you will appoint them according to your circumstances, depending on your position and status in the sect. Gu Kan nodded and said, I know it well. Chen Ping said with a smile, Huang Lai has been a national teacher in Yushuan Kingdom for many years, and it is inevitable that he has been infected with certain officialdom habits. You have to be more generous and patient. In addition to throwing him a rare Taoist book or two, help him point the way, but also need to help him peel off the mundane atmosphere and return to the rough jade. Don't think that the word Dixian is not just because the three of us are not low now, each has his own vision and world, and the people and things we talk about are all on the top of the mountain. It's worth money, the jade realm is nothing, the immortal is nothing more than that, and the ascension is okay. To put it bluntly, Shenku, who seems to be the most useless person on the ship, if he went to the Lizhu cave that just fell to the ground, the three of us stood together, it is estimated that they can't withstand the half-punched punch of old Grandmaster Shin. Gukan said, remember it. Lu Xianyang scorned at the side and said, Xiao Baba, mother-in-law, whether you are annoying or not, is it the village school teacher teaching the boy who wears open crotch pants, or is the father scolding the son when he returns home? As a result, Chen Pingan's elbow was hit on the shoulder, and the instep was stepped on by Gu Kan, who then pinched her hard with her toes. Lu Xianying groaned, and put on a posture of slumping his dantian, come again if you have the ability. Whenever Lu Jianxian makes a sound and complains, it is your grandfather. Chen Ping wrapped his arms around his sleeves, turned around and said, you two continue to recognize your relatives. I will go back to the house and sleep comfortably. Call me again when you reach the border of Chuzhou. Lu Xianying smiled and said, good guy, you really think of yourself as a master, dare to order Lu Jianxian and Gu Zongzhu like this. Gu Kan said from the bottom of her heart, you intend to hold the wedding banquet on his birthday, the 5th day of the 5th month of May, and I told him so. In the small town of my hometown, the 5th day of May is regarded as the day of the 5 poisons. Children born on this day are born broom stars and plague gods. Then Lu Xianying decided to hold the wedding on this day, thinking that this is a very good day. Lu Xianying lay on the railing, and said lazily, is this kid crying so hard? Gu Kan said calmly, it's okay. Lu Xianying asked, why don't you give the Liuxia boat to Qin Pingan? To be honest, Longquan Jianzong and I don't really need it. He is a money fanatic and has a big business now, but he urgently needs this thing to add to the cake. There are only a few people in his sect, and Ruan Taijiang doesn't like to talk about ostentation. Gu Kan said, a hot face sticks to a cold ass. He won't accept it, so what will I give you? Lu Xianying was silent for a moment, then sighed, I really envy you for having a good big brother. It's rare for Gu Kan not to tear things apart. I hope that in the next 100 or 1,000 years, every time we meet again, we don't have to think about what to say, and don't have nothing to say, only polite greetings. However, Lu Xianying said a distasteful word, I've always been curious, is snot delicious? Is it salty? Gu Kan said, do you still remember that one early morning, I gave you a meat bun from Mrs. Mao's shop? You actually even ate my booger. Lu Xianying suddenly said, so that's the case, it must have been released, no wonder, I said why the meat buns tasted so good that day. Gu Kan said with a smile, our hometown is simple and honest. Lu Xianying nodded and said, I almost mean it, you and Qin Pingan are both heroes. When Master Lu of Qinghu Palace arrived at Luopa Mountain, he didn't go out much. He helped his disciple Zhao Zhu to ask for his status as a guest minister, just like an old man plotting for his descendants. Lu Yong was somewhat embarrassed. Xing Qingjia was just the opposite. This fairy named Yuanhu went out for a walk whenever she had the chance. There is really no way, every time she returns to the house, she will shake out a proud disciple from her sleeves, Zhai Guangyun with the Taoist name Yunyan, pestering the master to ask questions. The most important thing is that Zhai Guangyun is the saying of the car wheel, Master went out this time, did you see Chen Yingguan? Has Mr. Yingguan returned to the mountain yet? Xing Qingjia didn't dare to let this personal disciple show her face, she didn't even dare to let her out of her sleeves, so she could only restrain her, a little nymphomaniac, for fear that she would speak out and have a bad relationship with Luo Bashan. Although he took refuge in Baidi City, Xing Qingjia still felt that Qi trainers in the wild world had a clearer distinction between love and hate than those in the Haoran world. Now on the wild mountain, there are many women who admire the red-robed hermit official at the top of the city. Xing Qingjia often patrols the mountain with Zhou Mili, who is expensive and enshrined for the protection of the mountain. After a lot of times, Xing Qingjia gradually recalled that the little girl in black with strange attire seemed to have no taboos in chatting, but in fact she was really called. There are only a handful of useful information about the secret affairs of Luoba Mountain. On the contrary, Xing Qingjia was asked by the little girl in black about the inside story of Jinsui City and Wild Mountain. Water monster, are you pointing at yourself? At first Xing Qingjia was skeptical about this, until one time during a mountain tour, Zhou Mili seemed to be rushing to talk, and talked about Jing Qing's wide range of friends, and Qinzhuliu and Mr. Mei Qin were friends who drank and punched. Xing Qingjia's heart was already shaken. The man surnamed Axayan, holding a long sword and carrying 3,000 pieces of breaking the time, in the barbaric world, how much trouble he caused with a certain scholar wearing a high crown and iron sword. Outsiders may not be aware of it, but Xing Qingjia has heard of it. In the end, she just listened to the innocent little girl again, and said that Jing Qing is always talking about it now, and she will have to make up for that, nephew Jing, who likes to wear white clothes and looks like a rich man in the future. The meeting ceremony, fulfilling the duty and heart of the elders. The fairy of Yuanhu Lake almost broke her heart on the spot. After that, Xing Qingjia never went out for a walk. I am very sure that week's worship was indeed talking inside and outside the box. Every sentence was a mystery, some of the words were lost, and he was pointing at her. Xing Qingjia. I passed Xing Qingjia's house quietly twice, the door was closed, and the little girl in black with a cotton bag slung across her face scratched her face. That's right, maybe it was Sister Qingjia who felt that mountain tours were not interesting, and she couldn't say anything clearly, so she used this method to politely reject herself. I get it, ha, Sister Qingjia is pointing at her. I have a big brain, Aura. A Dolly military ferry docked at Nujiadu. On the ferry, several priests from the Ministry of Punishment with nothing to do, and a group of Dolly monks in armor and swords appeared. Obviously, although this ferry is not big, the standard of this trip is quite high. Some caring people at the ferry knew at a glance that there must be important officials from Dolly on board. The person in charge is a handsome man with a vermilion wine gourd hanging on his waist. Chao Gingxin, the servant of the official department in Dolly capital, revisited his old place, and sighed endlessly. There are also 2 members of the Dolly earthly branch, descendants of the Yuan family of Shangzhou Kingdom, and Yuan Huajing, a sword cultivator of the Yuanying realm. Zhou Haijing, the female master of the mountaintop realm who complements the earthly branches. The purpose of their trip south to Chuzhou was to 16 people into the Luopa mountain to practice. These Taoist embryos and martial arts prodigies range in age from 9 to 18 years old. On the Luopa mountainside, the only ones responsible for picking up people here are a stern-faced boy in Xingyi, and a man squatting on the railing beside the cliff, picking his booger and then flicking it off. Since there is no sword talisman, according to the rules, this group of outsiders need to walk to Jumping Fish Mountain, which is not a short distance. Chao Gingxin, who had been the supervisor of kiln affairs for many years, obviously had no relationship with the man with evil eyebrows and mouse eyes. He has a manly taste, Brother Dofing still has the same demeanor, and his eyes are like torches. Zhou Haijing only felt that the man with dirty temperament and bad appearance had very serious eyes, but she was used to it, and she didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Zheng Dofing whispered, "This girl is so handsome, don't she be a sister-in-law?" Chao Gingxin sighed, blaming himself for being a dumb mouth and eating Coptish chinensis, which caused his uncle Chao Ping to issue a military order before leading the army to the wild world, requiring him to marry Zhou Haijing back home. Zheng Dofing understood it. It must be the kind of ambiguous relationship that has not been eaten yet. A friend's wife can't be bullied. Yes, it's enough. Tonify the kidney and strengthen the yang. The effect is great, you just want it. Don't be thin-skinned, be polite with your brother, the way of fighting in bed, but you can't tolerate the slightest politeness. When I pulled up my trousers again, the woman asked with a puzzled face, "Is it ready?" Chao Gengxin's scalp was numb when he heard this. He quickly grabbed Jing Daifeng's arm, and interrupted the other's talk. "Let's not talk about this, let's talk about the business first. My brother is a guest at Luopa Mountain this time, and he has a responsibility, so he has a lot to do with it." Jing Dafeng laughed and said, "It's not small." The 2 armies confronted each other, and the troops were sent out and ended in a hurry, and the drums were beaten to withdraw the troops. It's really God's will, no matter how hard it is for manpower to recover. Chao Gingxin couldn't stand it, but thanks to Jing Dafeng, he didn't forget the method of gathering voices into a line, otherwise Zhou Haijing listened to him, and he would have fallen into the latrine. Chao Gingxin quickly took out a booklet and secretly handed it to Jing Dafeng. "I have not been idle this trip, and I am suspected of turning my elbows outward. I am all about Brother Dafeng and Luopa Mountain. There are 16 people's trivial matters can be supplemented by an explanation for the official court archives." Zheng Dafeng put it in his sleeves calmly, smiled and said, "I have a heart. My brother will not thank you, and we will see the truth at the wine table later." The boy in Xingyi coughed a few times, shook his sleeves, clasped his fists high, and introduced himself. "My name is Chen Lingjun, my Taoist name is Jingqing, and I am enshrined in the Patriarch Hall of Jisa Peak. A distinguished guest from the capital." Chao Gingxi nodded and said with a smile, "Patriarch Jingqing is famous far and wide." Chen Lingjun immediately showed his original shape, his face full of pride, his hands on his hips, he. Chao Duzhao has sharp eyesight and can drink at the table. It is not necessary to same table with Swadharma protector of Kolongxiang. As for the group of young men and women, Chen Lingjun really didn't take it seriously. These raw melon eggs and girl films, I really don't look down on you. Now, I, Uncle Chen, have learned the Tao and have boundless magic power. Just to scare you, don't you be so frightened that your faces turn pale. Don't pear blossoms bring rain, cry and cry. Can you handle my second punch? Zhou Haijing asked with a smile. I would like to ask Immortal Master Jing Qing, is Pei Qian, Mr. Chen's first disciple, on the mountain now? She and Pei Qian are both among the 4 great masters of Aquarius Continent's martial arts review. Zhou Haijing had already sparred with Yu Hong in the arena in Dalijing City before, and she lost a punch, but she believed that she would be able to beat that old guy to death in a few years. Chen Lingjun laughed and said, Pei Qian, put in some effort, those who can do more work. That is to say, the master of the mountain stopped him, otherwise the child Chao Qinglang, or the teacher of the seedling, would have to give up his seat in a headless patriarchal hall in Yunnan country. Zhou Haijing was a little uncertain about the status of the boy in Tsing-yi in Luoba Mountain, just listened to his tone, and didn't take Jijia Peiqian seriously. As a junior. In the Yujiang Shui mansion belonging to Huang Tinghua in the Dali Fan, he called the Water brothers and sisters, yelled 5 times and drank 6 times, and followed Chen Pingan up the mountain at the earliest. She knows all of this. Not far from them, there was complete silence. The 16 people felt different emotions when they saw the scene of the fairy house. They don't know much about this old immortal of the Yuanning realm, who has the same surname as the young Yingguan. They only know that Patriarch Jingqin looks old and true, likes quiet and doesn't want to go out. Most of them are the kind of people who don't care about the world. He is a Taoist who is willing to live in a secluded mountain and practice Taoism, and only wants to prove immortality. Therefore, the only time he appeared in the outside world was when he'd visited Jingyang Mountain. Yunsha and Yao Shinjun has an irreversible relationship. Others go up the mountain to practice Taoism, but the little boy in Tsing-yi really just goes up the mountain when he goes up the mountain. Walking on the Niujiao crossing the mountain road, Zhou Haijing suddenly asked a question about Jing Dafeng. Obviously he is a worldly expert with a unique heart, so why pretend to be a villain and annoy others? What's the point? She has seen more than 100 names like Jing Dafeng, the mountain gods who dance high in the clouds and mists of space, some qi trainers who like to pretend to be profound, approachable martial arts masters, and people in the world who pretend to be informal but are actually running around like dogs. It is still rare for someone who seems to be afraid that others will regard him as an expert. Chao Gung thought for a while, and replied seriously, people who know themselves too well are more rootless duckweeds. They flow with the water, and before entering the sea, they just want to say a few more words with the shore, because they are afraid of being remembered too much, but afraid of being forgotten too soon. Zhou Haijing asked casually, why didn't the Dali court increase the proportion of qi practitioners among officials? Except for the Great Li Song clan, every country in the continent wanted to have more qi trainers in their temples, no matter whether they served as civil servants or generals, or worshipped guests, they all wished for it. Chao Gingxin said casually, the rotten air is like a steamer, and it is easy to dissuade the vigorous vitality. Zhou Haijing took a deep look at this drunkard Chao, who was recognized as squatting in a latrine without shitting, but was able to make steady progress in his official career. He was young and quite insightful. Jing Dafeng deliberately didn't look at the flirtatious glances of Lang Yuking's concubine over there. It's disgusting. And a little sad. When will the hard days come to an end? The drought will die and the flood will die. An old man in a green shirt, long coat and cloth shoes waited early at the gate of the vassal's Jumping Fish Mountain. There was also a white-haired boy standing there with a festive look on his face, holding a pen in one hand and a booklet in the other, eager to try. It's gone. This time, 16 of them came in one breath. All of them were chi practitioners under the earth immortals, and warriors under the three realms of refining gods. There are happy events every year, especially today. Beside the old cook, stood Qin Yuanji, who really didn't want to stand here. Qin Yuanji looked embarrassed and said, "Mr. Zhu, can I really teach boxing to others?" Zhu Lian laughed and said, "You are one of the 2 candidates appointed by the Mountain Master to teach boxing. You don't have to doubt the Mountain Master's vision of people." Qin Yuanji had never doubted Qin Shanzhe's vision from the first time she saw it back then, and she firmly believed in it. It was not until later that Qin Yuanji gradually changed his mind. "Mr. Zhu, is this a pun?" Not only to say that Qin Shanzhu didn't misjudge himself, but also implying that he didn't misjudge Qin Shanzhu. Zhu Lian couldn't help laughing, and didn't say much. The reason is to be afraid of and the most fearful of things, the world is afraid of misunderstanding. But Qin Yuanji misunderstood Qin Shanzhu. Zhu Lian didn't think there was anything bad about it, on the contrary, it was a kind of beauty unique to Luoluo Mountain. The majestic owner of the Lost Mountain, walking on the mountain path of his own sight, passed by the female martial artist who kept walking. One felt that the other party deliberately ignored him, and there must be 300 taels of silver here. If I just look at my fellow martial arts a few times, I will be suspected of being a disciple, but if I don't look halfway, I feel guilty. Whether I look at it or not is wrong, is it wrong? Qin Yuanji asked curiously, even if the master of the mountain has a lot of work and cannot get away, wouldn't it be better to have Pei Qian teach boxing? It's because Tongyi's Hao is digging dadu, and she can't do without her. Zhu Lian shook his head and said, Pei Qian is only suitable for learning boxing, not for teaching others. Why? Pei Qian himself. Qin Yuanji was confused. Zhu Lian patiently explained, Pei Qian's fists are her own. Because Pei Qian's boxing techniques are all unique to her. Who knows, even after repeated observations, the other party can't catch it and can't learn it. Pei Qian's boxing skills are all inward. The reason why our mountain master is Pei Qian's master is that he can both inward and inward. You can also distract yourself, so as long as the mountain master himself is willing, he can let the onlookers and boxing learners be clearly organized, vivid and clear at a glance. Qin Yuanji was a little sad. It seems that I can't match a talent after all the hard work in learning martial arts and boxing. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Don't compare your talent with Pei Qian, it's very boring. In this regard, there are only a few people in the world, except for Lin Zhongxian, Pei Bei and Chao Ci, even our mountain lord. They didn't dare to ask Pei Qian casually. I am afraid that even His Majesty the Emperor will personally intervene in this matter, so these 16 people, one by one, know in their own minds, if they dare to be ignorant when they arrive at Lupo Mountain, they probably won't even have the chance to be sensible in the future. Luopa Mountain is willing to place high expectations on them and cultivate them meticulously, which is not the reason why these children think that they can see Qin Shanzhu if they want to. Wei Bo, with a golden ring in his ear, appeared at the foot of the mountain out of thin air. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Why is the night tourist god coming to join in the fun, so I'm not afraid that the show will be too big and it will scare the fledgling children. Wei Bo was too lazy to answer. This new title, in Luoba Mountain, is the most joyful name of the little boy in Xingyi. Who dares to disrespectfully call Wei Shanjun, Brother Wei, he will be impatient with others, and will not give up until he corrects the other party. When Chen Pingan returned to Luopa Mountain, someone would back him up, and Chen Lingjun was on Wei Bo's side, so it would be amazing, amazing. It has been a long time since Wei Bo wanted to deal with Chen Lingjun. Wei Bo remembered something. The old deaf son of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, whose Taoist name is Longxing, and whose alias is Gontang, fell in the battlefield of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, went to the barbaric dojo, and then ascended to the top again. Now the old deaf son is still Ascension realm. I will come to Luoba Mountain soon to serve as a registered enshrinement. The white-haired boy murmured, it's really bad luck. Why did he come to the Ascension realm to make offerings? Can't you just follow Jinghao, the Tai Bao of Lixiaozu Qinggong, who went up the mountain to drink and then obediently get out? Changming asked, what do you think of Guizhuzhou? Wei Bo asked strangely, what does Changming Zhonglu ask this for? Zhu Lian, however, was manirking, and said, friend, longevity has only been in charge of the law for a few years, and you want to put down the pick, isn't it appropriate? Only then did Wei Bo understand it. Changming said with a smile, of course it's not about resigning from the legal position immediately, but I just think that if this matter is really feasible, I can make preparations earlier. Changming actually had an idea in his heart for the next candidate for Luopa Mountain's Palm Law, that is, Guizhuzhou, the disciple of the Mountain Master, who came from the Great Wall of Sword Qi and had entered the Summer Palace. Previously, they accompanied the Mountain Master together on a trip to the Damu Temple in the blessed land of lotus roots. Changshu was very impressed with Guizhuzhou, and was very satisfied with it. Guizhuzhou is the hard hand of the same senior sister Pei Qian. The white-haired boy took the ermine hat girl and worshipped Guizhuzhou as the leader together. These things seem to be jokes, but in fact, it is not that simple if you look deeper. Up. A Liuxia boat was approaching the border of Chuzhou. Chen Pingan called Pu Lu and Guan Piping Shenku. They sat down in the house and said straight to the point, you will soon follow Gu Kantafiazu to establish a sect and become a brand new sect. For a long time, being admired by people inside and outside the mountain is not an easy task. Don't get used to it after a long time. Farewell is imminent, and ugly words come first. I can send you in, and I can drag you out. When the time comes, Gukan won't be able to stop him even if he wants to, and he might not be able to stop him either. The two of them were silent like cicadas, and the nascent soul realm old woman whose real name was Su Fu was trembling, and bravely broke the silence. We will follow Mr. Chen's instruction. They are all top-notch people. If you want to talk about the relationship between Gu Kan and Chen Pingan, what is the friendship? There is no need to say a word, they have all seen it with their own eyes. Chen Pingan really wanted to deal with them, so he didn't need to speak, and when they met, he gave Gu Zongzhu his eyes, and Gu Kan would definitely kill them without saying a word. The master of a sect does not need to report to the Zhongtu Confucian temple to clean up the sect in his own territory. Shenkut suffered the most from Chen Jiangxian's hands. In those dismal years, like ghosts hitting a wall, how could he be so miserable that he could pass it off with a sentence? Now that the old woman Pu Lu had taken the opportunity, the old master immediately stood up, clasped his fists and said in a deep voice, Chen Jianxian, Shenku has now come to his senses and changed his past. If it wasn't for the love of Chen Jianxian, he was lucky enough to follow Gu Zongzhu and make a fortune. Genealogy status, dare to say a word of conscience at this moment, since the first step of leaving that world, Shenku has made up his mind that in this life, no matter how many years or decades are left to live, from now on, he will just run for the future. A good person goes to do good deeds. Chen Jianxian has infinite ways. You should know that Shen engraved these words. They are extremely sincere words from the heart. Not a single word is fake. What a fool. Shenkut stood up to express his opinion. Even the old woman Su Fu and the ghost guard had no choice but to stand up to express their sincerity. Chen Ping wrapped his arms around his sleeves, nodded and smiled and said, the words are true and unquestionable. Whether it is true or not, we have to wait and see again. Let me tell you in advance that you have the ability to make me believe it today, and in the future if you lied to me about anything, it would be an extra crime. The more Shinku spoke, the more energetic he became. He just held on to one thought to clarify it to the end, and said loudly, never give Chen Jianxian a chance to misunderstand Shinku. Chen Pingan stretched out his hand and pressed twice, indicating that they all sit down and chat. there is no need to be so cautious. I will ask Gu Kan to light a life-extending lamp for you in the Patriarch Hall, or not. Shin Kuk is greedy for life and afraid of death, so he dare not be a good person to do good deeds. As soon as Shin Kes touched the seat, he quickly got up and thanked Shin Jianxian again. The old master was overjoyed. Is there really such a good thing? Su Fu and Guan Yu looked at each other, and lighting an ancestral hall life-extending lamp was really equivalent to an extra life. Chen Pingan also didn't want to simply use force to suppress people, and let them have long-term nightmares when they thought of the name Chen Pingan. He said slowly, or asking what a gentleman is, it's just a sincere thought. As time goes by, if you stick to it to the end, it will be natural. Facing a small matter is like facing a big enemy, and sitting in a secret room is like sitting on a thoroughfare. Day and night, do self-examination and self-examination. If you bully me with words, who can humiliate me with my name? For 100 years and forever, who can really catch me? The house was like a secret room. The three of them chewed the words carefully, but none of them dared to break the silence first. Everyone admired in their hearts. Anyway, Shinko felt that Master Qin Shan deserved to be a master of martial arts with mastery of boxing skills, and his gentle words were like heavy fists, which made others have the urge to kneel down and bow their heads in worship. The Ghost Peak, who also worked as a teacher, feels that Chen Pingan is worthy of being a close disciple of Wen Xing. The old woman Su Fu felt that Chen Jianxian and Na Ningyao were a match made in heaven. Chen Pingan was actually quite embarrassed, so he had to make a joke to explain away the ridicule. Don't be fooled, quickly take out a pen and paper, and write down these golden and jade words. The dignified atmosphere was suddenly relaxed, and Chen Pingan said, the parting is imminent, so how about both of us thinking about each other's good? Shinku had already found some mysterious feeling, and before the other two could speak, he had already opened his mouth and said, Mr. Shin is sincerely convinced. How dare you refuse to follow orders? For some reason, he was terrified of Luopa Mountain before, but now, Shinku felt that he would go up the mountain without any fear. Shinku said all the good things first, so Su Fu and Guan Yu had no choice but to follow suit. Chen Ping got up and walked to the window, and said with a smile, there is an old saying in our hometown, saying that a person cannot have poor eyes and no money in his pocket. Maybe it is temporary, but if his eyes are poor, he will be poor for a lifetime. Su Fu and Guan Yu looked at Shinku at the same time. The old master was full of doubts, but instead asked them with his eyes, aren't you all sycophants? Shin gave you a chance and you are useless. Lu Xianyang clicked his tongue and said in amazement, is it strange that you said that Luopi Mountain has the atmosphere? Gu Kan nodded with a smile and said, one of the orchid smoked cages. Will the fragrance of the flowers grow after a long time? Huang Lai had no choice but to concur with the words, Chen Shan has done a great job. When we arrived at Nujiadu, we were close to Luoluo Mountain. There is nothing to do today. Even if you don't make money, it is still valuable. It's another safe day, little fairy. The group of 16 people who climbed up to Jumping Fish Mountain instead of Luopi Mountain, because they saw the Patriarch of Law at the foot of the mountain with the Taoist name Changsho, they felt lost and became smaller. Even if the righteous master still didn't show up, after all, Luopishan didn't regard them as dispensable, as a completely negligible existence. But they didn't know that Chen Pingan was actually sitting on the top of the steps on the Jumping Fish Mountain Road at that time. Not only that, but also Lu Jianxian and the madman Gu Kan. It's just a cover-up, so they don't see it. Lu Xianyang wanted to sit in the middle, but Gu Kan refused, so Lu Xianyang moved his seat, but Gu Kan followed suit. Lu Xianyang was angry, and asked his elder brother to show off a little. What's wrong? Lu Xianyang, who was still unable to succeed, said angrily, little slug, you are going to be the suzerain soon, are you naive? Gu Kan laughed and said, I'm naive and you aren't naive. When Lu Xianying learned that Chen Pingan would not show up today, it didn't matter. He immediately got up and patted his and left. There is no place for Lu Yi here. Lu Zongzhu first went to the Longshu River near the blacksmith's shop. Familiar with the way, I put a duck under the armpit on both sides, and went back to my own mountain to stew bamboo shoots and dried duck. It's a pity that it can't be regarded as an old duck pot, and it's a little bit behind the year. Chen Pingan and Gu can return to Jilin Peak. The young hermit officials were polite, and Zheng Qingjia was even more polite, which made Chen Pingan a little puzzled. It was actually the first time that Gu Kan and this Jinquiqing female fairy named Yuan Hu met, and it was easy to arrange. Lu Yuzhou was the deputy suzerain, and Zheng Qingjia was a god of wealth who did not live up to his name. Pei Qian had no choice but to use the three-mountain talisman again, leaving Yulin Ferry in Tonggishao, and arrived at the Lotus Root blessed land. Pei Qian first went to the Xinqiang Temple in the capital city of Nanyuan. Martial luck came surging, and was broken up again by Pei Qian with his fists, and martial luck rained down on the blessed world. On a strange mountaintop, Pei Qian replaced Chen Pingan as the highest position. Except for the first level of Wufu who has just stepped into the first step of martial arts, from the second level to the mountaintop level, there are a total of 8 levels, and there are 8 positions on the top of the mountain. In addition, there are 3 levels of ending, full of vigor, return to the truth, and divine arrival. So a total of 11 positions. For tens of thousands of years, every talented martial artist has competed with his contemporaries, climbed to the next level with the strongest certain level of each current, and can get a gift of martial arts from the world in their respective worlds. But for a full 10,000 years, there have been countless warriors in the world, and the number of warriors who have entered the next realm with the word strongest is not small, but those who can come here and stand for a while, especially those who cannot give up their seats, without exception he is a genius among martial arts geniuses. In less than 200 years, most of the old faces on the top of the mountain were quickly replaced. Qingming Tianxiaolin Jiangxian, this Yashan forest master, is now the well-deserved #1 martial artist in the world. When this Sword Chi Great Wall priest whose real name is Yan Gua, he came here once before with his true self and sincerity. The female martial god of the Duduan dynasty, Haran Pei Bei, the #1 martial artist in the world, has a place on the top of the mountain. As Pei Bai's direct disciple, Chao Ci, dressed in white, occupies 4 positions here alone. Chen Pingan had also been here before, but he was squeezed out by his own founder-disciple within a few days. So here and now, there are 2 Pei Qian of different ages. First, there is a little black charcoal girl who is eccentric and spirited. Then there is a young woman with a bun. Pei Qian failed to see the master here, so she stood silently on the top of the mountain and waited for a long time, but found that her mind still hadn't returned to the original place, so she walked down the mountain silently, not bothering to talk nonsense to that existence. The weird existence who made an exception for Pei Qian once again, walked beside her, smiled and said, "Yes, I showed up sooner than I expected." Pei Qian was already in a bad mood, but remembering that master had been punched halfway, she endured it again and again, so she didn't say a word that it's none of your business. The first ancestor of the military family who opened up a martial art for the world with his fists 10,000 years ago, said with a smile, "Isn't it possible to hold grudges for that flimsy half-fist until now?" Pei Qian really endured and endured, but he couldn't bear it after all, but he didn't forget to say the word "senior" first, and then say, "Why do you have such a bad mouth? I feel that I climbed the mountain last time and then went down the mountain, and my words and deeds were not polite. If you have the ability, you should come at me and put the blame on my master." What a hero! The first ancestor of the military family laughed heartily. That boy Chen Pingan is good at learning boxing, so, a lot worse than Chao Ci, but he is quite good at recruiting apprentices. Pei Qian gained a lot of wisdom from a pit, worried that this guy would not speak a little bit of morality, so she just went down the mountain depressed and stopped talking. In the past, with Xiao Haitan's temper, let you know what firecrackers are, and what is smoke from ancestral graves. The first ancestor of the military family escorted Pei Qian all the way to the foot of the mountain, and said with a smile, "Go back and tell Chen Pingon that you can come to the foot of the mountain to talk about it. In view of the general environment, this site may be closed at any time. Please move to the permanent source replacement app, Huanyuan app. Org as soon as possible, just the foot of the mountain." Pei Qian said unhappily, "Senior is so capable, please invite my master." The tall man with a perfect figure stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to rub Pei Qian's head. "This temper, whoever you want." Pei Qian turned his head away and glared at him. The next moment, just as Pei Qian was about to turn his head to look at the top of the mountain, his mind was thrown out of this boundless world. A man in a snow-white robe with pure golden eyes stood on the top of the mountain with sleeves in his hands, condescending, squinting and smiling at the burly man who turned his head and looked at him. "Come here uninvited. It's half an old friend, let's meet again. If you are not convinced, then, let's fight." The first ancestor of the military family stared at that figure, and said with a sneer, "It's only half a one, how dare you pretend to be a master and scare me? I never thought that there would be a tall woman next to that person, leaning on the ground with a sword, scaring you." Sword of Coming Chapter 1104. Standing on the top of the mountain is Chen Pingan's mind and sword holder. Previously, they traveled far away together and rushed to a secret place for sword refining. The first ancestor of the military family sneered, pretending to be like a human being at last. It is both the greatest compliment and the greatest irony. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "My whole life has become today, and the old people on the road have withered to this point. If it weren't for you and that sword cultivator who wanted to occupy the old heaven and parted ways with the patriarchs of the three religions, leading to the first division in the world, otherwise your military strategists would have died a long time ago. Li Jiao, you will not end up being beheaded first and then imprisoned for 10,000 years. Now that you think about it, do you regret it?" The first ancestor of the military family strode up the mountain and sneered, "The identity has changed, and the tone has also changed. The previous pure martial artist of the end did not dare to talk to me like this. It is raining from the sky, ha, it is raining. The ancestors of the three religions, I am really not afraid after a long time, you boy will be transformed. The tower and the sky can't be broken, they can only surround it, facing Zhou Mi and the new god, sitting for thousands of years, both sides look at me and I look at you, stare blankly, and there will be another one in the world, wouldn't it be a disaster?" Zhou Mi ascended to the sky, Chen Ping on the ground, and each took half. Of course, it's not about Zhou Mi or Chen Pingon, but the turnaround of the co-lord of the heavenly court after 10,000 years. Like the two of them divided the property equally. The first ancestor of the military family was chopped down by a sword from the top of the mountain, and retreated to the foot of the mountain. The burly man just stretched out his hand and pulled out the abundant sword energy that was difficult to entangle with like a long river of time from his body, and threw it far away, tens of thousands of miles away. Outside, earth-shaking vibrations sounded. The burly man didn't even look at it, he just climbed the mountain again. This time there was no more words, just walking silently to the halfway up the mountain, only to be hit back to the foot of the mountain by a magnificent sword light pouring down the mountain like the Tianhe waterfall. The sword energy condensed and spread all over the mountain. The first ancestor of the military family opened the way with both fists, punched a huge gap abruptly, went upstream, and laughed, "It's light and weak. Compared with 10,000 years ago, the sword intended does not increase but decreases. It seems that the previous battle with the armored man caused a lot of damage to the divinity. Ha, the dog bites the dog and the hair is all over the ground, and it is pitiful. How can I compare to you, a dog and a man, who share half of the sky? The bearer of divinity, half of the new owner of the place where Lost is located, plus the sword bearer with the highest killing power. The third sword cut the burly man in two, but the latter returned to its original appearance in an instant, and did not continue to climb the mountain, nor spoke again, and stood on the side of the mountain. Chen Ping smiled and said, "Handing out 3 swords is enough etiquette." The tall woman nodded with a smile. Only then did the first ancestor of the military family return to the top of the mountain, feeling depressed. It's just that he thought of 2 things, so he endured it. The husband has a clear sense of grievances, and when he looked at Chen Ping again, he felt a little pleasing to the eye. Chen Ping looked at the first ancestor of the military family, and suddenly felt strange. I heard that the person in front of him was notoriously defiant 10,000 years ago, and he said many heart-stirring bold words, as well as many jaw-dropping crazy words. For example, the sentence, "When I develop a complete martial art, all races in the world can become gods with me in the flesh, and no longer need to rely on the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth for food, and there is no need to worship or offer incense to anyone. Only by establishing a religion like this can we be worthy of being called ancestors." Another example is, "Let me raise the level of martial arts, and I can beat Daozu with one hand." Today's discussion, the sword cultivator who doesn't want to be a head shorter than anyone else, who is willing to go to the Tianting ruins to refine the sword and be the master, come, stand by my side, and fight against the patriarch of the 3 religions opposite. The first ancestor of the military family, although he lost, he really never persuaded him. The tall woman smiled and said, "I'm forgetful, so I just remembered that I came here. It seems that I have broken the rules. The little master is a little upset. Remind me to leave quickly." The first ancestor of the military family suggested, "Whatever you go, stay here and fight with that little master." According to the etiquette of 10,000 years ago, whoever wins will listen to whoever wins. Chen Ping said, "Then you go back first." The tall woman nodded and said, "Master, don't forget the agreement with Jiaozi." Chen Ping smiled and said, "I have a good memory." The first ancestor of the military family waited until the sword-bearer, one of the 5 highest, left this ancient star that was both a prison and a dojo, and finally heaved a sigh of relief. After all, a total slash had hurt Dao too much, and he completely lost his real body. After suffering the soft 3 swords, he had already felt overwhelmed for a long time. Chen Ping, who was squeezed out of the 10th realm by his big disciple and no longer under the lights, was not surprised at all. He said that he had no regrets in his heart, but he was deceiving himself and others, but he was more happy in the end. But how could Chen Ping, who was wearing a red robe from the 9 realms, be squeezed out? After all, Chen Ping is really confident that he will not move here for a long time. It is himself, the unprecedented man, for thousands of years. There is no one to come after. In any case, in less than a year, Chen Ping lost 2 seats on the top of the mountain one after another. Chen Ping inevitably felt a little sad. He knelt down and looked at the latecomer who had snatched the territory. The other party was easy to recognize. Among the 11 seats, there was only this strange martial artist. The other party sat cross-legged on the ground, straightened his waist, and folded his hands on his abdomen. The muscles in both arms are knotted, and the face cannot be seen clearly, only because the hair hangs down, even covering the entire face. This person's fist is huge, each hair is like a waterfall pouring down slowly, and with this person's breathing, each strand of hair flutters. His physique is strong and his muscles are strong, and his fists are powerful, which is worthy of a soul-stirring statement. When Chen Ping looked carefully, he found it even more unbelievable. It turned out that every hair was covered with tens of thousands of ghosts. The first ancestor of the military family smiled and said, "From the top of the mountain to the last floor, it is normal to lose to her. The more they go, they will only become stronger and stronger. The world's martial arts path will never let you and Chao Ci, two brats, share the same status and steal the limelight. Half punch before, how does it feel? Chen Pingan said truthfully, it's a great taste to have hot pot and wine. The burly man laughed heartily, okay, that's a good idea. Once the prison term is over and he returns to the world, he must have a hot pot meal and drink. Chen Pingan asked tentatively, as long as the seniors don't mind, why don't the juniors go back to the mountain and prepare hot pot and drinks, come here in real body, and have a good meal? The first ancestor of the military family said, as long as there is a little advantage to take advantage of, you really won't be left behind. Those who follow you can learn well. Chen Ping was surprised. Why this time when the two sides reunited on the top of the mountain, there was always an inexplicable meaning in the words of the first ancestor of the military family. What is the atmosphere of my Luobashan? What qualifications do you have to point fingers? The burly man said, in the next 100 years, there will be a lot of 14th level monks. I don't know how many will be left in the next 1,000 years. If anyone felt that she had been misunderstood as a disciple, they could switch to another person to teach boxing. But the other 8 preachers still didn't show up. Luopa Mountain didn't say anything, and they didn't dare to ask. It is most difficult to speculate with common sense for the immortal family to save people. It depends on everything such as talent, character, chance, acquired habits, etc. According to the Taoism learned before, each of them should practice silently to refine qi. Earlier on that ferry, several young girls and boys made an appointment to go to the entrance of Luopa Mountain when they had free time, but now they were beating drums in their hearts, not daring to think about it. I'm afraid that if you jump into the fish mountain, you will be caught straight, and you can pack up your bags and go home. Between Tiaoyu Mountain and Luopa Mountain, there is a Fuyao Foot which is said to belong to the mountain. When the weather is clear, you can vaguely see the scenery of Fuyao Foot. If you are lucky, you can also see the cloud-shrouded Ji Se Peak. The Patriarch Hall of Luopa Mountain was built there. The more unrealistic it is, the more curious people will be. I am looking forward to the next meeting of the Patriarch Hall, and I will take a few glimpses of those immortals riding the wind and swords like rainbows from a distance. In just a few days of hard work, the 8 people's impressions of the 2 boxing masters have been greatly changed. The one surnamed Xing is a fool and has no professional skills, but he is really capable. On the contrary, it was the female master surnamed Xian. If she didn't deliberately hide her clumsiness and didn't want to teach the truth, she would be an embroidered pillow. Xing Dafeng was grinning, deliberately didn't say anything, but deliberately added fuel to the flames, and taught those 8 martial arts geniuses with their eyes above their heads a few good punches. It's not a good piece of material, and the Dali court didn't dare to send it here to waste the precious time of Master Qin Shan's cultivation. It's all fish-like, and it has been secretly inspected by Qin Tianjian, and it does have martial arts. If not, it is estimated that the Dali court would not dare to send the next batch of carefully selected sword cultivator embryos to the Luopa Mountain. Every time Qin Yuanji taught boxing, when she was alone in the martial arts field, she always pursed her lips subconsciously. At night, facing the lights on the table, and those precious boxing manuals written and hand-copied by Mr. Zhu himself in the early years, she wanted to go to Luopa Mountain several times to find Mr. Zhu, or directly to Chen Pingan, and tell him about the boxing. She couldn't teach, not out of anger, but because Qin Yuanji really thought that her level and aptitude were not enough. If there is any grievance in his heart, Qin Yuanji naturally has some. The sun was sinking in the west, and the sky was burning with clouds, bright red and gorgeous, like ancient gods smashing countless corals. The willows and willows in the mountains are green, and the rocks are craggy at dusk, and the iron is accumulated in the blue. After Pei Qian left the blessed land of lotus roots, she came to the Jumping Fish Mountain martial arts arena. She observed secretly for a while, and when Qin Yuanji said to take a break, Pei Qian sat on the roof. In the martial arts arena, there was no whispering. After all, this is the vassal hill of Luobai Mountain. God knows if there will be that immortal who used his palm-viewing mountain and river supernatural power to look at this side from Luobai Mountain. But they abide by the rules and dare not make any mistakes. They don't say anything, but their eyes can speak. This made Qin Yuanji feel a little uncomfortable, but he could only pretend that nothing happened. At the same time, Qin Yuanji suddenly understood a truth that Mr. Zhu himself said, but unfortunately she didn't feel deeply back then. It's because she is in the midst of blessings and doesn't know how to be blessed. It turns out that in the past, no one took the realms seriously when going up and down Luopa Mountain. It was true, not only in the eyes, but also in the heart. Qin Yuanji heard someone calling Sister Xian. When she heard the words with a familiar voice but an unfamiliar address, she came back to her senses, turned her head to look, saw that it was Pei Qian. Qin Yuanji was stunned, she just nodded habitually with a smile, and forgot to cup her fists in return. After all, when the two sides met face to face in the past, they were always so casual. When Pei Qian showed up, there was an uproar in the martial arts arena. Different from the young Hamid official, Pei Qian's description and appearance had long been known on the mountain. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many Jianghu girls in black clothes and hair buns in Aquarius Island today, all of whom would use the pseudonym Jing Qian. Pei Qian, Grand Master Pei. One of the four great masters of Aquarius continent who earned the nicknames Jing Qingming and Jing Seiqian by virtue of his ability on the battlefield in the capital of the Great Li dynasty. Pei Qian didn't talk nonsense with them, saying that she would be in the four realms, and you all go together, remember, you go together. One punch at a time, the 8 people lay on the ground and their bodies twitched, as if they were walking non-stop. Pei Qian said indifferently, "Is it all trash? Do you deserve to come here to learn boxing? You also deserve Qin Yuanji to teach you boxing. Get up. If you can't stand up on the count of 3, you should leave Jumping Fish Mountain by yourself and find another teacher to learn boxing. Don't they all have eyes above their eyebrows? Are you afraid that you won't be able to find someone to teach boxing?" Elder sister Qin is also a bunch of half-baked bastards, so she has the right to look down on her. Before Pei Qian could count to 3, 7 people staggered to their feet as if they were on fire, and there was a young girl with the weakest body, who was helped up by a boy who looked exactly like her, but she was just swept away by Pei Qian with one glance. Her eyes turned red instantly, and the girl with a blank mind bit her lips tightly, not daring to cry out. Pei Qian said in a deep voice, "It takes 2 hours to walk 6 steps. If you are exhausted, you have to crawl on the ground for 2 hours. If you can't do it, pack your luggage and go to the foot of the mountain to make a bed." Zheng Dafeng squatted in the distance, secretly gloating. Pei Qian looked at these people and became more and more angry. They all learned martial arts and boxing at a young age. If you get to the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, you can pack up and leave that day. When I was young, I didn't think there was anything wrong. Pei Qian would even secretly give Qin Yuanji the nickname Qin Hanin in private with Xiaomi Li. When Pei Qian grows up and reaches a higher level, he knows that Qin Yuanji's difficulty is not because Qin Yuanji is not easy for her to practice boxing, but that Qin Yuanji's boxing is not easy. Pei Qian now treats Qin Yuanji with no mercy at all. It's a pure warrior's respect for another pure warrior. Zheng Dafeng said with a playful smile, "Pei Qian, how to teach boxing is mainly up to me and Qin Yuanji. If you are willing to come and give advice, it is of course no problem, but it is up to the 8 of them to stay. It doesn't count if you said it." Pei Qian said sullenly, "Understood." It was she who broke the rules. Zheng Dafeng laughed and said, "Don't hold grudges on the small account book, let alone sue the mountain master secretly." Pei Qian turned around and rolled his eyes. Jing Dafeng stood up and patted his buttocks. See, do you still say I'm bragging? In the early years, I often pointed out Grandmaster Pei's punches. Otherwise, can she listen to your Master Jing's persuasion today? Besides, Grandmaster Pei and you when Master Tsen was sparring, you were still wearing crotch pants. Each of you was not good at boxing, but your spirit was too high. Either you were thinking of having a serious discussion with Master Pei in the future, or you were thinking of having a chance to fight with Qin Shan. The Lord has a few face-to-face chats, what a fart. My lords, my daughters, don't just stand still, hurry up and get on your feet. Pei Qian walked up to Tsin Yuanji, hesitated for a moment, and felt that he still couldn't vomit. Sister Tsin, why should you underestimate yourself? Have you worked hard to practice boxing, keep walking millions of stakes, and pursue a me? The old deaf child doesn't know the pros and cons, he just treats it as an ordinary mountain-top talisman. The magical effect is the magical effect, and he doesn't think it's too hot, but it's a pity that this talisman has the limit of using it 3 times, otherwise it will consume its own merits. Otherwise everyone in the world aren't the places in the green hills the dwelling places for those who hold talismans, so they are easy to escape. Xiago is aware of the roots of Mr. Sanshan Joho, and she deliberately does not tell the old deaf son this ordinary priest. After all, Jing Qingjia did not wait for the Mr. Xiaomo, who was half the patriarch, and followed Gu Kan to a place called Yunyan country in Tonggizhou. She is mentally prepared. The old owner of the Iluo River, the great demon on the throne is standing upright, and the women of the current Dequan dynasty enshrine Jing Xing. There is also Taoist Heiranan, who is lying sick every day on the 100,000 mountains. The entire Jinsui city has already been turned into emptiness by Mr. Jing, and Mr. Jing taught her a magic technique to turn emptiness into reality. Once Gu Kan selects the address of the sect, Jing Qingjia can take it out and take root. If you want to relocate to another place, it is also a matter of little effort. But in Jinsui city, the group of genealogical monks who have been kept in the dark until now have no treatment like Zhai Guangyun, and have never been released by Jing Qingjia. When the cross-continental ferry left the border of Chuzhou, Jing Qingjia shook that personal disciple out of his sleeves, and learned that Lord Yingguan had returned to the mountain, and met and chatted with his master. Zhai Guangyun's eyes were filled with resentment, broken Nian Nian, complaining that master doesn't care about herself, that she doesn't have the beauty of an adult. Gu Kan smiled playfully. Jing Qingjia had no choice but to tell this personal disciple that a certain person is now in Haoran Tianxia. If you pester the young hermit so much, be careful that her head will be cut off by her sword. Master arrives time can only help you get your head back. I just hope she won't mess up your real body and soul. Although Zhai Guangyun is fearless, she is still very afraid of Ning Yao, who has never been masked. The reason is simple. The higher the realm of Ning Yao, the more unpleasant she will be in the wild world. Oops, Ascension-level sword cultivator, that's amazing. What good is there for a woman whose man is just going out to drink more with friends and is about to close the door? The young hermit official is good at everything, but it is not good to be single-minded. If he learns from the previous hermit official Xiao Yun and betrays the Great Wall of Sword Qi, he will be happy. 165 days, change partners every day. She also became Chao Tianjin's direct disciple, and became a senior teacher and sister with the contemporary palace Lord Shengjuan with the Taoist name Dongting. When dreams come true, people can't help but want to slap themselves in the face to make sure it's true or not. The girl still remembered that in the dark night, a young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown said to her, "Fellow Daoist Qingni, you and the 2 of us can kill the 14th realm together." Fortunately, the Taoist priest who pretended to be gods and fooled around didn't forget to add an explanation to her, "It's just 14 first-level Qi practitioners." How many people and things in the world were only ordinary at that time? Fortunately, she is considered to be a woman with half a fellow villagers' friendship, and now she is also cultivating in Lingfei Palace, and occasionally comes here to disturb her practice. In fact, Ni Qing also knows what the other party is planning, but it doesn't matter. The mountain is so clean, like the words. It seems that even the sound of the leaves falling can be heard clearly. It is always good to have someone to talk with and talk about hometown affairs. The woman's name is Yu Iyo. She and Yu Rongyu, who are like sisters, were both the personal maids of Yu Chuanji, the master of Fenwan Palace. With Dan Dixian as his teacher, he has just become a genealogical monk registered in the Patriarch Hall of Lingfei Palace, and Yu Rongyu has also become a direct disciple of Xing Zi, the Jingxian nunnery on the ancestral mountain of the Jin K school. Yu Yi is still happy for his good sisters, but also feels that he is luckier. After all, Jingxian Temple is one of the downhill sects of Lingfei Palace. It's just that the two women reunited in a foreign land, their seniority is a bit different now, and Yu Iyo, who has not yet been conferred and has no Taoist title, has to call Ni Qing, Patriarch Qingni. The mountain empress from Falling Yuan Mountain also went to the Yunshao dynasty, and was able to fill in the vacancy, and became a mountain empress appointed by the imperial court. Luo, a woman warrior, went to the Baihua Lake, because Chao Tianjun made a special trip for her with a vague decree, saying that there is a chance for her to take it there, not waiting when it is over. At a certain ruins of the Shuifu, Luo met an old turtle who was reluctant to use it as a Taoist temple. He was a young monk who spoke slowly, but he had a catchphrase. What a bad temper. Ni Qing was always unable to connect the sword-carrying boy and the young Taoist priest with the young hermit official and by Yu Jingla's head teacher. I always feel that those two are like the two bachelors squatting in the village, wearing ragged cotton jackets, showing cotton wool, drooping eyebrows, hands in sleeves, eyes not straight, looking at women passing by, as if they are them. Qingbai Mansion in Kazailing didn't move, and it didn't suffer any military disasters. The owner of the mansion, Bai Mao, was so lucky to get this blessing. It's a bit outrageous, Palace Master Bai couldn't figure it out. Could it be that my ancestors had a master, who was a fairy on the mountain? But Bai Mao had carefully looked through the family tree when he was young, and there was no such thing at all. Bai Mao misses those two new friends very much. One likes to brag louder than the sky, and the other is probably forced to make a living and has to do some forced buying and selling. Now Bai Mao always thinks that at the well in the small town at the foot of Huan Mountain, he seems to have slapped the boy with the sword on the head. If there is a reunion, try again. Luopa Mountain did not wait for Xiago, who was wandering somewhere, but instead waited for Lao Def and Yu Yu, the master and apprentice. On the other side of the mountain gate, the old deaf boy saw the indistinct white-haired boy again, an old acquaintance from the Jianqi Great Wall prison. Because it was the first time for Yu Yu to use the three-mountain talisman, her level was not high enough, and her body was not strong enough, so she became dizzy when she stood still, and obediently vomited. The white-haired boy thought that the old deaf boy was just a passerby on his own mountain, but when he heard that the old deaf boy was going to be his family's enshrinement, he immediately became unhappy. The old deaf child also saw that the other party had almost written the word disgust on his face, and felt quite helpless. What was even more helpless was that the white-haired boy raised his chin, and the old deaf child who was reminded had no choice but to call Grandpa. The old deaf child did not forget to speak from the heart. Before the old deaf boy became an official enshrinement, the white-haired boy began to wear small shoes for the other party. Wow, haha. Once the power is in his hands, he ordered Ling Xing, Yu Yu, I don't need to introduce, I know very well. You, old deaf boy, hurry up and report your name, Dao name, place of origin, and realm of cultivation. The old deaf boy had to report his name Gong Tang, his Taoist name Longxing, the location of the Taoist place in the past, and so on. At that time, Chen Pingon left Shirwan Dashan. Without outsiders, the old blind man began to miss his beloved disciple. Before, the old blind man gave extra favors outside the law. Seeing that the running dog of Ascension Realm defended his beloved disciple Li Huai and didn't make a big mess, the old blind man casually used an excuse of no credit but hard work, and casually threw it to Tender Taoist is an ancient book of Taoism, which is the first half of Lianshan Ju. Now Taoist Nen is excavating Dadu in Nadanjaihu, nominally for the sake of the good relationship between Li Huai and Chen Pingan, and helping to move the mountain, but in fact it is a veritable alchemy to prove the Tao. Even if he is not stingy like a wild peach pavilion, he will occasionally feel a little bit uneasy about his conscience. Will he be too resourceful and plan too many hidden officials? As a result, the old man in yellow was patrolling in Dadu, trying to find out someone who was throwing talismans and delaying his mountain refining. In a trance, he was caught in Sherwan Dashin. Taoist Nen didn't know what he did wrong again. His Tao heart was no longer important, it was just a gall that might burst at any time. Used to it. The old blind man smiled. I heard that you have already done business with Chen Pingan. Taoist Nen had a bitter face, and his heart was filled with grief. Well, you, Chen Pingan, are just making you some fairy money, so you're suing here. If you want to grab money, just say it, why bother to talk about business? The old blind man said, give you face. Taoist Nen showed his real body and went to the ground, please stay. After waiting for a long time, but still not waiting for the old blind man's foot, the tender Taoist raised his head, somewhat puzzled. The old blind man took out a book of Taoism from his sleeve, threw it to Taoist Nen's mouth, take it away. Nun Taoist hurriedly grabbed the Taoist book, the second half of the alchemy formula. The old blind man said, if within 100 years, you still can't get along with the Tao, and you can't compete with Zhu Yan, you can lie obediently in the Ascension Realm and enjoy the blessings for the rest of your life. Taoist Nun changed into a human form, held the book in both hands, wept with joy, and bowed to thank him, while Tao Ting, thank you for your kindness in preaching. The old blind man was grateful for Tao Ting's gratitude. He didn't take it seriously at all, he just told him to get out, so as not to be an eyesore. When Taoist Nen returned to the bank of Dadu in Tonggishao, when he came back to his senses, there were two words in his ears that couldn't get rid of. Now you are at the Ascension Realm, and your vision is still narrow. You see me like a frog at the bottom of a well looking up at the moon. When you are lucky enough to enter the 14th realm one day, you will see me in the blue sky like a mayfly. Xiago also went back to Luopa Mountain, saying that he was wandering outside for a few days and missed Chen Shanju and Guomengju very much. Chen Pingan said that he planned to let Shema go to Jumping Fish Mountain to teach Taoism in the future. The unspoken meaning of a certain sentence couldn't be more plain. Xiacici, since your Shema is not in the mountains for the time being. Xiago immediately understood, rubbed the ermine hat, and put on a posture that was no match for me, Mountain Master, I will come and I will come. When they arrived at Jumping Fish Mountain, the girl with a sable hat saw the 8 Chi practitioners, and said straight to the point, my name is Xiago, and I am Xiaomo's Taoist companion. In the recent period, I will teach you well, and you should study hard and try to stay. Drink me and Xiaomo's wedding wine. The 8 people looked at each other in dismay. They had thought of many ways to meet the preacher, but they never expected such a person or such a scene. Xiago remembered Shanzhe's instructions, so she added a few words. One of my Taoist names, Bai Jing, came from the barbaric world, and I have cut off a few throne monsters. After the introduction, I am ready to preach. Everyone cheers up, you are about to start hearing about it. Ignoring those stunned little guys, Xiago was gearing up for himself. I heard that the owner of the mountain planned to visit Chunglin's sect in Beiju Luzhou in the near future. Xiago was in high spirits when he heard this, and he would not feel sleepy again. Some of them, are the genealogical monks of their own families say peak patriarchal hole. To help them teach Taoism to such trivial things as picking a little from her fingernails is enough for these guys to study hard for hundreds of thousands of years. As for what to do at the Qianglin sect, Xia Go didn't hesitate to ask, what else could he do? It's not about asking the sword, it's about demolishing the patriarchal. Xia Go is very happy about this. What a wonderful way to get your own name. In other places, the dog fights the power of the people. The owner of the mountain is good, but people rely on the power of dogs. Sort of Coming Chapter 1105. Life is easy to get drunk and hold the head wine, there is no opponent in the world. Among the colorful clouds in an isolated city, the entire Baidi city was empty except for Jing Juzhong, and even the Liuli pavilion was thrown out of the city by Jing Juzhong. After all, as a junior, you have to listen to your senior, and Lu Qiqing has nothing to do about it. He dare not say a word, but he insists on saying goodbye to the senior brother in person before leaving. Jing Juzhong looked at the tearful Lu Qiqing and sighed, recalling an old incident that was not too big or small back then. Jing Juzhong had a rare moment of soft-heartedness. So he appeared at the mountain gate and told his junior in a pink Taoist robe, for example, if you get into trouble outside, don't report to the master easily name, lest the other party dare not kill you. Lu Qiqing immediately understood that he could not report the name of his master, only his brother. Jing Juzhong waved his hand, signaling Lu Qiqing not to stand still and block his eyes. Perhaps Lu Qiqing was reluctant to leave, so he had nothing to say, and wanted to confirm the matter with his heart. How many 14th realms does the senior have? As a junior, he is of course willing to believe it, but he really can't believe it. Jing Juzhong asked with a smile, how many do you want? Lu Qiqing cautiously said that of course the more the better, 2 is not too few, and 3 is not too many. Lu Qiqing then asked the senior brother if he could go further. Jing Juzhong saw a kind of worry in the other person's eyes, so he patted his shoulder and said with a smile, a smart person is easy to learn, but a fool is not easy to be. Don't think about things that you shouldn't use your brain, just be your fool. If it is said that there are people who are willing to practice qi in the Howren world, if they are not in the 14th realm, and it would be better to replace them with others, Lu Qiqing must be one of them, and there is no hesitation, and there is no trace of falsehood. Just like Jing Juzhong back then, because he was hesitant to choose which path to enter the 14th realm, and had nothing to do, he set up a puppet, swayed horizontally and colluded with the inside and outside, without knowing that Jing Juzhong killed Jing Juzhong, and he killed himself. In short, in the conspiracy that engulfed the entire Baidi city, even Han Chaosa and others were no exception. There was only one Lu Qiqing who was wearing a pink Taoist robe, standing between one person and 10,000 people. If he didn't speak harshly, Lu Qiqing would be crushed into flesh by hundreds of sword lights, spells, and supernatural powers in an instant. To the end of his death, he still hated Han Chaosa and the others for their betrayal, and worried about the safety of the senior brother behind him. The moment before Dao Shao, Lu Qiqing in the pink robe just turned his head and said, "Brother, take care." At the highest point of the colorful cloud stands a big banner, which reads, "Bong Rao is the first in the world." Below is a stone table carved with a chessboard, and there are 2 jars of chess pieces on the table. Jing Juzhong was sitting at the table, with white pieces in the chess pot beside him. After waiting for an unknown amount of time, Jing Juzhong changed the positions of the 2 chess pots, gently supported the sleeve with one hand, and stretched out with the other hand to pick up a black stone from the chess pot. Judging by the posture, Jing Juzhong will be the first to place a piece on the chessboard. Such an exception is the opposite of what the big banner said. A woman with a burly figure and a rough face, crossed 2 worlds, ignored the restrictions of Baidi city, and came here as if entering no one's land, and said heartily, "Long time no see, Huaixin." Jing Juzhong turned a blind eye to her, listened but didn't hear her, and when the black stone on her fingertip was about to touch the chessboard, the woman sighed, "I'm really afraid of you, Jing Juzhong. Come on, call me over, what are you asking for? I have a gentleman's agreement with Daozu, and my words and deeds are not out of bounds, please be considerate." 3 of the 14 realms Jing Juzhong, relying on swordsmanship, Taoism, and supernatural powers, are no better than one who is truly invincible. There is nothing to be ashamed of. You and Yudo are just competing, not dividing life and death. The person who came was just the collection of countless demons from heaven, and when he spoke, he had already changed his appearance, becoming the old Taoist priest hanging from the highest place by Bai Yujing, the Taoist ancestor in Qingming Taiangxia's mind. Jing Juzhong threw the black chess piece back into the jar and asked, "Do you want to be free? Is there a freer existence in the world than the outer heavenly demon? Since it is purely like this, why do you say it freely?" Huawei Tianma sneered and said, "Only by you." Jing Juzhong nodded and said, "It's up to me." It asked, "Could it be whimsical to establish a religion and call it the ancestor?" "Then I will ask you, Jing Juzhong, what kind of religion do you want to establish and what kind of ancestor do you want to call it?" Before Jing Juzhong could give an answer that would shock the world no matter how he answered it, it laughed out loud to itself, "I am a heart demon, a reflection, an alien demon that everyone can punish." Juzhong is the world's first demon giant, and in this way, it is indeed a perfect match. After refining my fake 15th, you will be able to complete your merits and virtues and enter the real 15th realm. From then on, you will be unique. Killing a monk in the 14th realm is like cutting melon and vegetables. It is raining in the sky, and the new 14th realm is springing up like bamboo shoots after the rain. The tips of the bamboo shoots will not come out, just like the arch of yellow mud, tender and delicious. The spring bamboo shoots will grow very fast, of course, the premise is that they will not be pulled out and eaten, and they will have a chance to break out of the ground, grow into a green bamboo, and eventually become an old bamboo until the bamboo flowers bloom. Even if Jing Juzhong himself is a brand new 14th realm, Jing Juzhong's 3 14th realms and 3 kinds of combined ways have nothing to do with the gifts from the patriarchs of the 3 religions. There is a watershed, and Jing Juzhong still belongs to the old 14th realm. As for Ning Yao, the number 1 person in the colorful world, she followed Qin Kingda's reminder and chose to retreat, to hide from the rain, so it is only on the timeline that Ning Yao is the new 14th realm. Therefore, when Jing Juzhong looked at Ning Yao, he was no different from the old blind man in Shiwan Dashan named Zhizhi. They both felt that Ningyo's 14th realm had high killing power. Jia Xing, who used to be Haoran, became wild and meticulous later. In addition to the nickname, Tong Tian Laohu, which belonged to others, Wen Hai, which is more like the name given by the master, should be more familiar. Wen Hai made 2 theories. One said that Zhou Mi's knowledge was as vast and difficult as a bottomless sea, and the other said that Zhou Mi created tens of thousands of wild characters, Shueyun Shu. In the entire underworld, there are also a small group of ghost monks who hide well in the sun. The former are like the 2 ghosts in the fairy hairpin city, the old woman with the Taoist name Jiong-o, who is hiding on the road to Huangquan. The supreme treasure named Fuqin, the ghost fairy old woman who is really a mosquito, complains about herself, and the Wudi, the master of the Ascension Realm great demon Xuanpu, is also in a hidden ashram. In order to kill Qin Pingan's great wish in the world, Wu Ti lamented that time is not waiting for me. Unexpectedly, the senior who has already reached the threshold seems to have failed to cross that step, but before Wu Ti feels that there is still a chance, there is God's will in the dark, they all sense some kind of mysterious signs, and their hearts were all shaken. The group of ghosts and immortals, each with their own Taoism, coincidentally either sighed long, or sighed faintly, feeling empty in their hearts. A single plank bridge, first come, first served, they are both ghosts, destined to cut off the road. It's just that I don't know which old thing can get this good fortune. But in fact, Su Jun, the ghost, is less than 50 years old now. Relying on Taoist companions, he has reached the 14th realm after eating soft rice. Dogs don't pick up that headmaster Luan. Zhang Fenghai pinned the jug to his waist, stood up, and looked back at those sect members who looked more or less expectant, but before he, the suzerain, could speak, the deputy suzerain put his hands on his hips and laughed. We 6 masters, plus 1 Lu Qin, where can we go in the world? Lu Tai glanced at Lu Qin, who was lying on his stomach, and the latter immediately understood, opened his mouth, barking. Lu Bixia asked curiously, the weather in Yinzhou was not bad before, could it be that ghost Su Jun? This female casual cultivator is at the pinnacle of the Ascension realm, and she is also one of the candidates for Qingming Tianxia. Lu Tai nodded and said, the ability to eat soft food is the best in the world. If you are not convinced, you can't do it. Yuaning said with a smile, Master Yingguan has lost to Su Jun Zhang Fenghai of the 14th realm, the hard work of the second person in martial arts in Qingming Tianxia, Lu Bixia, Lu Tai, and Yuaning, one of the 10 young candidates in the world, are mentored by Xing Yuan. The 6 of them plan to go out to relax and take a trip to the wild world. Of course it's just sightseeing, but if anyone dares to stop them from traveling, let them become landscapes. A dog named Lu Qin may also be added. The first stop of their journey across the world is probably the Great Wall of Sword Qi that was broken in 2 and has been ruined. In the wild world, the top of the green mountain of the Great Mountain. A girl in a black robe with braids stared at the skinny girl, and asked a very impolite question, are you that in this world? The girl's eyes were dull, so the girl with chauffeur braids walked around the girl, walked behind the girl again, kicked the girl's knees, and the girl knelt on her knees, still expressionless. The girl with chauffeur braids nodded, now she was more satisfied with the height of both parties. She came to the girl's side, pitifully. It turned out that the girl's cheek seemed to have been tattooed, and an ancient bronze character, Burn, was carved on it. Besides show me, who else could carve this word on the face of a girl? And the person who can insult the girl so recklessly is of course only the former Hamid official who betrayed the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Xiao Yun. Xiao Xian stretched out his hand to grab the girl's cheek, twisted it lightly, and asked, what do you mean by burning the paste? The dull girl nodded. At that time, Bai Zhe found her. To be precise, she was found by Bai Zhe on his own initiative. She said that she had given herself a name, Diu Ku. She was born in the wild world when she was first born, and worked hard with the martial artist of Runhua Peak in the Qingming world. The apprentice Feng Yuanshao that Huang Ting found in the colorful world purely by chance. A cultivator does not have no troubles when his realm is high, but the higher the realm, the more troubles he will have. The life-saving talisman, even sometimes, will become a life-saving talisman. This is why Zhou Qingao had to stay by Firen's side all these years. Fei Ran smoothed things over and said, sell me some face. Xiao Xian stretched out his hand. Firen threw out a rusty bronze dagger without hesitation. Xiao Yu took it, waited a few times, it was not bad, nodded and said, for your sake, I bought it. Xiao Sun then casually tossed the ancient immortal armament sword that he had just acquired to Luo Shan, and said, you can give it to the disciple you just accepted, remember to make it clear to that ignorant girl that I gave it to you, your. Zhang Lu smiled and said, why don't you send me off? I agreed to eat delicious food and drink spicy food with you. Okay, I've been hungry for 9 meals in 3 days, and am so poor. Selling swords and buying wine sounds very heroic. Xiao Sun said hee, hurry up, just wait for a moment, the deliverer will be there right away. In the early years at the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Xiao Yun and Lu Ji were collectively called fierce. Firen looked at this former hermit official who specially told him not to provoke Zhou before he ascended to the sky, and that he had to let him go and leave him alone. A 14th-level sword cultivator who has refined the entire wilderness hall of valor doesn't seem so pure. After another heavy rain, the newly promoted 14th-level sword cultivator is amazing. In fact, it is not pure. Xiao Xian glanced at Fei Ran, shook his head, disapproving. As long as you are in the 14th realm, as long as you leave the wild world, I am afraid that you will give away the head casually. Isn't it too embarrassing? Let alone that old blind man, can he beat Nananingyao? Firen smiled and explained, I'm different from you, I don't need the word pure. I don't even want it. Firen has already become an ally with the Dial, and she has also fulfilled the agreement with Zhou, creating two branches of the long river of time in the wild world. Then Firen, as the co-lord of the wild world who couldn't be more justifiable, under the premise that Mr. Baizé is destined not to fight with him, Firen has a great hope of being able to enter the 15th realm in the future, it's just a matter of time. That being the case, is Firen going to fight for a pure sword cultivation of the 15th level? Can Zhou Zi be willing? Will Jing Juzhong agree? Xiao Sun knowingly asked, Firen, why did you call me over? Firen said helplessly, Senior refined that hall of valor, right? Xiao Sun asked back then, Patriarch Tuashin, Wenhai Zhou, and the one scolded by Zhou Qingao as a beast, didn't they say that I can't run around with this courtyard? Fei Ran said, so I have no choice but to invite the seniors to come to Qingshan to talk about it, so that we can rearrange our positions, and we can do things in a proper way in the future, so that no one will disobey the other, and everyone will think that the other is a waste. This time we entered Hall of Valor, you can speak clearly, and then sit down separately, you can save a lot of trouble. It's a pity that Xiaomo, who had been sleeping in the bright moon for thousands of years, took refuge in Qiningguan, causing Bai Jing to defect from the wild world. Otherwise, the two sword cultivators of the Ascension realm, one at the peak and the other at the consummation, would definitely be able to occupy a place in the Hall of Valor. Before that great battle, the group of 14 old thrones held by Tuyueshan Patriarch No. 1, Shomi No. 2, and Lu Cha No. 3 were known as the most powerful and able to fight. Today's set of new thrones is filled with too many young men, it's just a joke. Even Firen, who doesn't take the realm too seriously, feels a little outrageous. Xiao Xian glanced at Zhou Qingao. Fei Ran smiled and said, he is the bottleneck of the immortal realm, and of course he is not qualified to enter the seat now. Zhou Qingao, whose Tao name is Clogs, used his previous name to become a Tao name. Zhou Qingao replaced Zi Wuming's wild heavenly stem and became the leader. He once went directly from the three realms to the Jade Royal realm, and within a few years, he became a fairy again, and now he is the bottleneck. Xiao Sun said with a smile, it seems that as long as you recognize a good master, you can practice so smoothly that people are enviable. Zhou Qingao learned to be smart this time, so he didn't talk to him, and swallowed the sentence, it's a pity that this junior is the master's close disciple. Two more came, a boy with double pupils, Li Go, whose Dao name was Fei Qian. After being woken up by Baizé, Li Go took back 8 treasures of immortal soldiers from all over the wilderness in one go. There was also a man who looked like he hadn't woken up all day, yawning. His name is anonymous. A yellow Qinkuan bag and a purple gourd are tied around Ligus' waist. After waking up, Ligus' previous road of refining things and joining the Tao has been occupied by Taiyin, the female crown of Qingming Tianxia, but Li Go had already prepared a candidate path for himself. A book city, do the opposite, and the north is king. That kingly stunner had clearly succeeded in joining the Tao, good guy, instead of showing off, he found a hidden dojo where there was no trace and hid. On the other hand, Li Go, who looked like a boy with double pupils, came to this mountain together with his best friend Wu Ming swaggeringly, and came to see Firen and Xiao Yin openly and aboveboard. Li Go waited until the rain stopped in several worlds before he succeeded in joining the Tao. It was Zhou Mi who gave way, not only gave way, but even paved a whole way, so that Li Go could go directly to the 14th realm. Because before Zhou Mi ascended to the sky, he gave Zhou Qinggao something, which was a pile of text engravings, which was exactly Zhou Mi's self-created Yunshui Book of the Wild World. In this way, Li Go replaced Zhou Mi as the master of writing in the wild world, and could enjoy the gift of a great way brought about by the circulation of a world's writing. Wumi glanced at the little girl with chauffeur braids and sighed, since Zhou Mi left behind the things and people who manipulated the wild culture, the world's martial arts would naturally be no exception. Xiao Sun pointed at the young man's gourd to catch monsters on his waist, and hooked his fingers. Without further ado, Li Go took off the golden gourd and threw it to Xiao Yin. Xiao Sun slapped Zhang Lu with a slap, stared straight at Li Go, and asked, "If you don't want to fight?" This is not as simple as robbing things. It is like asking the person who was robbed of money, "Don't you give me a knife before handing over the things?" Li Go said, "To me, these foreign things are dispensable now." Xiao Ying said angrily, "This is a bit too much." A punch smashed the defiled body. Descaling instantly restores its original appearance. Xiao Sun didn't think it was futile either, just one punch followed by another punch. It was fun to punch until it exploded and then reunited. Taking advantage of Xiao Yin's lack of time to talk to him, Fei Ran asked softly, "Do you regret not cooperating with Zhou Mi back then?" Dialko nodded and said hoarsely, "I'm so sorry. If she is willing to accompany Zhou Mi to fight towards Howren, the wild monster clan might be able to take down that Aquarius Island and use their corpses to level up the Dadu. Maybe she has eaten that comrade now, and she can take advantage of the trend to become 1.5 masters of the 2 worlds of the wild and the great." Firen asked in his heart, "Become a Taoist partner with me, won't you regret it again?" The girl with a paralyzed face and dull eyes smiled suddenly, hesitated for a moment, stretched out her snow-white and withered fingers, and gently grabbed Fei Ran's wrist, blushing slightly, lowering her eyelids, and shyly said, "You are very warm." Firen couldn't help laughing, held her somewhat cold hand behind her back, turned her head to look at Xiao Sun, and said with a smile, "Just a reminder, don't make an exception." Xiao Xian squinted at that side, curled his lips, and for the first time did not reply, nodded, "The young couple will live a good life in the future, and Li Go will help me out of my share of money." Firen smiled and cupped his fists in thanks. Xiao Sun muttered, "Scholar Go Ri is carved out of the same mold." One after another group of veritable wild monsters were summoned by Fei Ran to discuss matters, so Senior Xiaoying should not wait too long. Among the great monsters of the 14th Old Throne, there is Zhu Yan, the patriarch of Qinshan. The new owner of Yiluo, concubine Fei. The great demon of the new throne has sword immortal Shouqin, as the head disciple of Wenhai Zhoumi, a sword cultivator in the Ascension realm, with 6 swords hidden in a sword box on his back, and a green robe bundled banana refined. When Zhou Qinggao saw the minister, he bowed to salute, and called senior brother. The minister nodded with a smile. There is also the big demon official Lane with white eyebrows, hair and robes, who is only thinking of persuading the young hermit official to be a Taoist partner with his granddaughter. A direct disciple of the patriarch Tuashin, Daoist Xinzhuang, a female ascendant, a formation master, and also a martial arts master. A tall monk in brilliant golden armor and a mask. Even Fei Ran didn't know his avenue and true identity. There is a female crown, Taoist name Ro. The Taoist crown on her head can be said to be unique in the world. On top of the hibiscus blooms a lotus flower, and on top of the lotus is a fishtail. She is Huang Wuan, the great monster of the old throne, who cut 3 corpses out. Zhou Mi returned all the secret treasures to her after eating Huang Wuan. In the end, Bai Zhe took the two of them and climbed the mountain together slowly. The two ancient monsters were the same as Li Go and Wu Ming, and it was Bai Zhe himself who woke them up. A glamorous woman, official second, Taoist name Ma Shuezong. A short, rickety old woman, with 5 colors of Tao Qi all over her body. Every time the old woman lifts her feet up the steps, the tiger of this green mountain will feel the pressure, and she must use her magical powers to offset the weight of the Tao. Standing on the railing, Zhu Yan wiped his mouth when he saw the old woman. Since none of them are in the 14th realm, do they all have a chance? The old woman raised her head, pointed to Mr. Bai Zhe in front of her with a smile, and signaled to Zhu Yan, "Is it important to be in harmony with the way or life?" Fei Ren asked with a smile, "Mr. Bai Zhe, Wang Youwu must be absent today." As for that Hutu, who is also an ancient monster who has lived for thousands of years, he doesn't use it anymore. Bai Zhe said, "Here we are." While speaking, the newly promoted 14th level monk Wang Youwu, who thought he was hiding very well, was randomly taken out of the hidden dojo by Bai Zhe, and was forced to appear beside Guan Yi. A Hall of Valor. The new wild throne. At the highest point, the master of the world is amazing. The second highest position, returning to the wild Bai Zhe from the grand virtue world. Of course, if Bai Zhe wanted to sit in the highest position, no one, including Fei Ran, would have any objections. He didn't dare to say anything, and he didn't dare to say anything in his heart either. Third, the incarnation of Tao in the wild world, the girl's sundial carving. Xiao Xing was the fourth. She was not happy anymore. She stared at the dial that had just received her share of money, and the girl took the initiative to ask Xiao Xing to change seats. Bai Zhe didn't say anything about it, Fei Ran didn't say anything, so they just switched places. Xiao Sun put his hands on his hips, laughed loudly and said, "If you don't dislike it, I will treat this place as your bridal chamber and have a precious son soon." The ancestor Chuxing with both hands on crutches. The waste bag and the monster-catching gourd are no longer in the dirt. Wang Youwu, a bamboo crown riding a deer. These three are all 14 realms. After that, Wu Mingshi, the #1 martial artist in the wild world, completed his ascension. Zhu Yan, Guan Yi, that little old woman whose Dao name and pseudonym are not disclosed. Concubine Fei, ministers in charge, official allies, new makeup, catkins, that golden armor like an old woman shrouded in clouds and mist is miraculous. In the wild world, there are 17 new throne demons. But Bai Zhe said, "Wait a minute." In an instant, a strong female martial artist opened, or in other words, forcibly broke open a gate with both hands, and strode out from the cold realm of countless evil spirits and ghosts. Martial luck was rolling and shaking like thunder. Rushing to this place, she raised her hands, and parted her black hair, revealing a browless face that was overwhelming, and when she took another step, both feet stepped over the gate, and a gift of martial arts rushed towards her from Hauran, Wildland, and the Western Buddhist kingdom. She only took 2 steps, from the end of martial arts to the level of arrogance, to Guasian, and then to the gods. Hauran the world. In Longhushan Tianchi Mansion, the 10-tailed celestial fox practiced the truth, prostrated himself on the ground, and greeted the celestial master Zhao Tianlai who had successfully escaped from the customs. In a mountain house, it was the first rain after the rain, the lotus was turning, the cherries were lit on fire, and the pomegranates were about to burst into flames. Bees and butterflies are fluttering in the flowers, just like the spring in the world. Lu Qi sat under the eaves, sighed softly. Without the most proud person in the world standing in the way, he would be successful after all. Su Zi is so heroic, he probably wouldn't mind this matter. Beiju Luzhou, Lu Jubao walked out of the family ancestral hall, turned his head and looked at the stretch of the 37 peaks in Tongzhou, thoughtful. Western Buddhist country. A gold-plated bronze mandala, erected countless scripture pillars. Someone testified here, a ray of sky broke through layers of fog like a blue sky, and slowly landed on the top of the world. A monk who has been reincarnated 80 times finally remembered all his previous lives in this life. There is a river beside the monk, a boat by the river, and a carriage by the bank. Qingming World. The Deputy City Lord of Nanhua City, Mrs. Wei, has completed her meritorious deeds. An ancient battlefield site, in the deserted wilderness, there is only one solitary cold temple, which is dedicated to the most holy teacher, Buddha and Taoist ancestors at the same time, named Xiangji Temple. In the temple, there was a young man wearing a Taoist crown but a cassock and a jade pendant, sitting on a futon. Under the slightly trembling futon, he didn't know what was suppressing it. Every time this person breathes and breathes out, he is dissipating his own way and deeds, helping those spirits and dead souls to open a way to go to Fingdu, and he does not know how many thousands of years have passed in the world. The young man raised his hand, wiped his tears, and murmured, accumulating external skills, "My heart is flawless, and I am a true Taoist." There was an aggressive knock on the door, but someone knocked on the door with a scabbard in hand. The visitor outside the door was none other than Jiang Shou, a monk who had just entered the 14th realm not long ago. In a place called Gusha Mountain, there was a young man who had never been out of this mountain range since he was young. With the help of a Taoist book, he has been silently refining qi until now. After confirming that he really entered the 14th realm, the young man who told himself time and time again to go out and have a look when he was one level higher, regretted it every time, told himself to say it next time, and now he still does not plan to go out of the mountain, and continues to hide, to be a woodcutter who chops firewood and burns charcoal and brews his own wine. I don't want to know you, and you don't need to know me. After the rain, the new 14th realm. Within 100 years, there are many more. In an inconspicuous Taoist temple, an old man named Chang Gung read at night with a lamp on, picked up a salted peanut and threw it into his mouth, chewing carefully. The young man and the old man laughed and said, "Chen Song, your ability to choose names is actually not bad. One day in the future, the two will become one, and walking in this world will be a real chin." The cotton-padded boy didn't take this kind of muddled and weird words seriously. Now that the Taoist temple has changed its master, the rules have become stricter. Thinking of getting up early tomorrow to do the homework, Chen Song sighed, reached out to touch the plate, and grabbed a piece of paper. Throwing the salted peanuts into his mouth, he didn't forget to give the old man a few more from between his fingers. Then the young man stood up, with a narrow smile, and said vaguely, "Chang Bo, eat slowly, I'll go to bed first. Tomorrow morning, I will definitely help you clean the yard, clean it." The old man smiled and said, "It's still early, can I tell you a story?" Chen Song hesitated and said, "Don't make it a ghost story, you know, I'm a timid person." "Well, if it's fragrant, it's not impossible." The old man twirled the wick with his fingers, and said with a smile, "This story has everything." Occasionally, he would be a little depressed. This kid, in his original nature, was quite lively and didn't deserve a beating. Chen Song sat back on the stool, put his hands on his chin, and said seriously, "Chang Bo, can you make up a story about me being the protagonist? You can be added as an expert." The old man nodded and said, "Yes, this is a fresh story about senior brother Chui Chan and junior brother Chin Pingon learning Taoism together. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.